All right, we will call this meeting to order. For the record, it is January 13th, 2026 at 4:31 p.m. for this joint meeting of the Meridian City Council and the Ada County Highway District Commission. We will begin this meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh. Oh, sorry. Councilman Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Strader.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Mayor Simpson.
Here. Do you guys need to open up yours as well?
I will call the meeting to order on our side.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Adopt the agenda as published.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. Anything you good? Okay. All right, then we will move on to the first item, which will, and before we get started, I just want to say welcome to the ACHD Commission and staff who are here. It's always great to get together and have these, what we try to do once or twice a year engagements, and with a lot of stuff going on in the Valley. And we're here to focus on a couple of items specifically here in the community that have come up through both city council meetings as well as major projects that are underway. But welcome to the conversation. And with that, we'll kick off item 1 with review of the 2026 Meridian projects. Good evening or late afternoon, whichever one it is at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Good evening. I'm Brian McCarthy, the manager of the right-of-way and project management team at ACHD. And I will be covering the 2026 projects that are taking place in Meridian. There's a lot of great projects going on, many of which are the top priorities for the city. I'll start here with a lot of projects on Ustick roadway. So these are State Highway 16 supported projects. You can see there's 4 of them here on Ustick alone. These are all for roadway widenings, adding multi-use pathways, and a lot of them are in conjunction and coordination with the State Highway 16. The top 3 projects here are all under construction. The most well underway is Ustick from Black Hat to 10 Mile Road. We are wrapping up construction this spring on that project. And then we have a joint project with the city of Nampa and Nampa Highway District for Ustick Road from Phyllis Canal to Owyhee Storm. That project is underway and expected to wrap up towards the end of this year. And then a project that we just kicked off construction just recently is the Ustick Road 10 Mile to Linder project. And construction for that will be going on for the next year as well. 2 projects that we are currently purchasing property for in the right-of-way phase is the Ustick McDermott to Black Cat and McDermott intersection. We are kicking off the right-of-way acquisitions right now and are getting that ready to build and prepare for construction starting in 2027. The next one is Franklin Road, same with Ustick, widening of Franklin Road, starting on the right-of-way acquisitions and preparing for construction as well in 2027. So a lot going on the Ustick corridor here. Some other projects in the city that we're working on, the #1 community programs project for the city of Meridian has started from Victory to Overland. We are starting the property acquisition process for that project. And again, looking to get that ready for construction in 2027. That will be adding multi-use pathways and filling in some of the gaps that exist there, as well as roadway reconstruction and constructing a 3-lane roadway on Stoddard. The Locust Grove Bridge project, it is a bridge crossing on the 10 Mile Creek just south of Victory Road. We just finished design on that. We will be purchasing some property and getting that ready for construction as well in 2027. And the Linder Road from Pine to Ustick project, which, as you recall, there's a multi-year right-of-way acquisition phase that we're starting on with this project for that corridor due to the nature of the corridor and the amount of property purchases that are required for this segment. This is the first year we are starting the property acquisition, and we have $2 million budgeted for this project in 2026 that we will start purchasing some of those homes along that corridor. The Linder Road overpass, which is the city's #1 priority project, I will touch on a little further in this presentation. but we are getting ready to build that project as well. And also the Black Cat Railroad Crossing, which I will also touch on a little bit. We are kicking off design on that project. That's the number 3 community programs request for the city. We're also kicking off design on 2 of the major river crossings, the Linda Road from Chinden to State. We are negotiating an agreement right now to begin design to widen that road, as well as all the bridge crossings. There's 7 bridges on that corridor, including all the river, Boise River crossings. We will be designing that and then through the next 2 years, and then we'll be phasing that over 3 phases to get that right-of-way purchased and the projects constructed over 3 separate phases to get that accomplished. Similar with Star Road, it's a river crossing from Chinden to State. We are kicking off design of that project as well right now, and we will have that. We are planning for 2 phases for that project, for design and then also for right-of-way and construction. This summer, chip seal is also taking place in City of Meridian. So Zone 7 that is highlighted there in the yellow, that is planned for this summer of 2026. There will be a lot more outreach and details as we get closer to chip seal season. Now, touching on the Black Cat Railroad Crossing. This is a project that we accelerated, working with the Idaho Transportation Department and seeking federal funding. There is $675,000 federal funds to improve this crossing, the railroad crossing of Black Cat and the Union Pacific railroad tracks. We'll be updating the existing stop control intersection with signals and gates. And on this project, we are finalizing the state local agreement with Idaho Transportation Department. And as soon as that's done, we'll be starting design and planning for construction in 2027, where the funding is programmed. The Linda Road overpass. So Linda Road, Overland to Franklin. Phase 1 is complete. So that's great. This picture right here is the picture of the construction at Overland and Linda. To the north, you could see the roadway of the new connection that will be going up to and over the overpass that is currently closed off, but it has been constructed. That project was built with the strategic initiatives funding that the City of Meridian received through the ITD. And for the entire corridor from Linda, Overland to Franklin, we have completed the right-of-way phase as well. So major milestone of getting that accomplished. There were 5 full property acquisitions on that project that we have worked through. Now, what's to come for Linda and Overpass project? We are wrapping up some items with Idaho Transportation Department. We are finalizing our agreement with them to oversee construction and inspection tied to the overpass itself. That the Idaho Transportation will be funding the actual bridge overpass. We are working with the City of Meridian on finalizing the water and sewer plans, as well as the landscaping plans and some of the aesthetic and sculpture features that the city's planning to incorporate with the project. Construction is, we're looking to put it out to bid late February and into March, and then start construction this summer. We're targeting June for NTP of construction. That will go on throughout calendar year 2027, most likely. We're still finalizing some of those details right now, but we are currently on track to get it out to bid and get it built this summer, or starting this summer. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Council, commissioners, any questions? Councilman Overton.
Just a follow-up. Councilman Cavanagh couldn't be here this evening, and he asked me to follow up on an area of concern of his, which was having to do with the philosophy and vision for where you guys saw Black Cat Road. And I know you just talked about how the railroad crossing would be accomplished.
Don, is your mic on?
It is on.
Okay.
It is. The railroad crossing is part of that 675,000. To what width is that going to be completed, or is it going to be built to such a parameter that it's going to handle a 3-lane road, a 5-lane road? What are we looking at for what the vision of Black Cat Road is?
This project right here with this funding, it's to meet the current conditions of the 2-lane roadway. If we were to look at making it a 5-lane road, there's additional studies and requirements that we would have with Union Pacific Railroad. That it would take a lot longer to get accomplished. It would cost a lot more money, and there's a risk that it would potentially not happen if we look to widen it at 5 lanes on this time frame that we're looking to accomplish it. So with the funding that was available, we were looking to just replace the existing crossing with the 2-lane roadway.
Quick follow-up.
Councilman?
So I get that and understand. I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear on that so we know what to tell people who ask us. So again, going back to just the philosophy and your vision for Black Cat Road itself.
The ultimate plan for Black Cat Roadway, I believe the ultimate plan is a 5-lane roadway. Yeah, I don't think we have it programmed currently it is not currently in the program.
Madam Chair. Oh, I just want to add to Councilman Overton's point. And so, yeah, basically we wanted to remedy the safety concerns that Councilman Cavanagh and constituents have echoed to us as well as to you all. So that's like the immediate first step, right, is to adjust the safety concerns and then go in later to remedy the bigger problems around traffic congestion.
Mr. Mayor,
You want,
Madam President.
yeah, I'll let you guys, we'll both run our own meetings. How about that?
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. And I think on the Black Cat Road and that railroad crossing, those are good questions. And the question that came to my mind was, is the improvement to the crossing that's being planned to be done immediately, will that be duplicated by or have to be torn out by the ultimate widening of that segment of Black Cat Road? Because even though it may not be on the program now, I gotta think that within the next 10 years, we're gonna widen Black Cat Road to its 5-lane ultimate section. And one thing that it would bother me if we're going to be then tearing out and redoing what's being done right now. Is what's being done right now being done in a way that will be compatible with the ultimate plan for that roadway in that area? Or are we not necessarily thinking about that?
The length of the gates that would go down and the location for the foundations or the flashers would not meet the requirements for a 5-lane roadway. They would have to be
Right.
set for the 2-lane. There should be some materials we could reuse, but ultimately a lot of it would have to be rebuilt with the 5-lane roadway.
The majority of that's going to have to be torn out in the next 10 years or so and redone.
Whenever Black Cat is constructed.
Okay.
Long way from now. This-
Well,
10 years.
sure. Okay, then if I may I ask one more question? This is going off onto the Linder Bridge project. One thing I've noticed on that south approach to the bridge where the work has been done, you showed the picture of that. I do know, as having been a bridge engineer in a past life, that a lot of times the desire is to build your bridge approach embankments and let them settle for a year or two if you can before you build the bridge. That way you avoid settling issues after construction. That is, say you let the settling happen before the major construction is done. It looks like we haven't done that there. Is there a particular reason why we didn't go ahead and build 20 or 30-foot embankments and let that settle for a while and then scrape it off and cut it to grade later?
With this initial contract, we didn't want to get into any of the structural aspects of the bridge. That will all be done under the prime contract. Regarding the compaction it will all be done per Idaho Transportation Department specifications. I don't have the specifics on the duration and, the compaction needs on it, but it was just determined not to do any of the structural elements with this initial phase.
Right. No, I understand that, but this would be just embankment, building extra embankment, letting some of the settlement take place ahead of time is often a savings because then you don't deal with settlement problems as much after the structure is built. And I was just wondering if we had a particular reason not to go that approach.
I don't have a specific reason.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Whitlock.
just a quick question. Can you bring me up to speed on chip sealing? You said Zone 7 is the priority for this year. How much in Zone 7? All of the yellow will be chip sealed or most of it? And tell me the process, because last year, all night, every night, people were out filling cracks and potholes and getting ready, I assume, for the chip sealing. So it's more than just chip sealing this year. Is that correct?
I am not the expert on the chip seal, but thank you,
Okay.
Tom.
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilman Whitlock, I almost said Commissioner, sorry about that.
Been called worse.
So what we're doing is we've selected roads that are a selection of roads within it. It's not going to be every road. It's not going to be 50% of the roads or 75%. It's roads that need it and meet the criteria to be chip sealed this year. So I can't tell you each specific road right now. I don't have that right off the top of my head, but what we're doing is we are filling every crack in the roadway. We're going through and doing a pavement pre-treatment everywhere within pavement maintenance zone 7 right now. We're about 56% of the way through. We actually measure the miles that are covered every single day. So I can tell you today very confidently, we're about 56% of the way through. So we'll be out throughout the district with some kind of pavement maintenance treatment. At the very least, crack seal and chip seal will happen on selected roadways that are meeting our current chip seal criteria.
Madam Chair. Tom, you might as well also explain, I don't want to assume you know this, but we actually updated our chip sealing process to not just fill in the cracks, but to evaluate other aspects of the road condition. So Tom, would you mind sharing a little bit more around like that evaluation before we get into the physical active chip seal and some of the other things that we're looking for?
Be happy to. Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilman Whitlock. So we actually have an entire process now where we go through, we'll evaluate the condition or the pavement, the PCI, the pavement condition index. How is the road doing? What previous treatments have been done to the road? So when was it chip sealed last? When has it had major repairs done? What's the traffic that road's taking? And so which pre-treatment is correct for that road? In some cases, it'll just be that crack seal. There are other methods we have that are not chip seal. A road could be past its usable life where we're letting it kind of fizzle out because we're going to be doing a mill and overlay. There are lots of different things that we could do. So chip seal is not the end all be all of pavement maintenance. It's just a big piece in our quiver of all the different pavement maintenance pieces that we can do to improve the road surface.
Not for you, Tom. Sorry, I'll bring Brian back up. Good to see you though, Tom.
Great to see you.
Maybe two other things, if you wouldn't mind touching on real quick. So I met with Director Head earlier this week. Maybe an update on the row acquisition, how that's beginning for the next phase of Linder that was talked about with the council beyond the Linder overpass. Just a brief update on plans for that. And then also, for those that haven't maybe seen what is ACHD doing to reduce traffic problems in the local neighborhoods as construction projects are happening? For those that maybe haven't been seeing that, just so if they hear comments from the public, so they can respond to those.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're referencing Linder from Pine to Ustick. Is that?
Yes.
We have a adopted concept for Linder from Pine to Ustick that had property acquisitions on full buyouts. I don't remember the exact number, but it was in the low 30s. The dollar value tied to that is more than we can accomplish in 1 year. So what we are doing is each year, and this year there's $2 million in the budget for right-of-way acquisitions. We are reaching out to the property owners that are along the corridor that are full acquisitions, and we're just trying to gauge their interest. Which property owners are interested in selling their house right now? And those are the ones that we are going to work with this year to move forward with purchasing the property. So we've sent a letter out to all those property owners, and we received responses from a few of them, and we're talking with some of those, or starting to talk with them about the buyouts.
And I think for council, once those buyouts occur, the homes will likely not be kept in that place. They won't be doing rentals through that time frame. So you may start to see homes come down along that corridor. That's just your indication that, that process is moving forward and it'll continue over the next several years.
Yeah, and that's a discussion we would like to continue with the city on what is the best use of those properties and that land once they're acquired now in the short term, but also the long term.
So more to come on that. Perfect.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
quick question a little bit on that. As that process happens and properties are sold and maybe torn down, how does that sort of impact the other discussions with other property owners with, does that decrease their value? I mean, what's your experience been with how that goes? Because I would assume at some point, property owners are going to be either concerned about, there's a couple empty lots, they've torn them down, what's the value to my home? Just trying to get a sense what to expect from some of our constituents who might have some questions there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilmember Taylor. First of all, we don't normally we don't buy out whole rows of houses that regularly. So I don't know that we can say that we have a huge amount of experience in terms of what's the impact there. We find that by going through the process and demolishing them as we buy them, at a minimum, it allows the property to stay in, at least it's easier to maintain, keeps it in a better place in the interim. Ultimately, we do have that adopted concept. So I think all the properties along there have a good idea of what's coming. And this is our opportunity for those who see that coming and go, I'm ready to go now. They have the opportunity to choose to go.
Regarding your second question, during construction, what we're doing for concerns about cut-through traffic and concerns of the neighborhoods, we're taking a proactive approach ahead of construction and in our design plans, looking at ways where if we have an intersection closure or road closure, what cut-through traffic might occur to avoid the closure, through neighborhoods and residential areas. And we're targeting those roadways to put down temporary speed humps and or stop signs and temporary traffic calming elements to try and get ahead of the anticipated cut-through traffic. And we're also monitoring that during construction and making adjustments and tweaks to it as needed during construction, on the current traffic patterns and where people might be driving through.
Just in case you haven't seen it or next time have a road. Councilman Overton, do you have a question?
Yes. So a follow-up on that, you did that on Sawtell Creek you put several more stop signs and temporary speed bumps when Eagle Road was being rebuilt between Amity and Lake Hazel. And at first I met with several people that live on that street and they were kind of furious about what was happening, but ultimately, I believe they understood and they were quite happy with the end result. But now that Eagle is being completed, what's your timeline when you go back in and grind off those speed bumps and get rid of those stop signs that weren't there before that construction?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Council Member Overton. As soon as the construction is complete, we'll go in and remove the stop signs. The speed cushions, the speed bumps that are there, we're going to do direct outreach to the neighborhood and see, do they want them to come out? We've built some infrastructure in place and we're going to ask them and let them have the decision. Since it's already there, they may like it, they may not like it. But the stop signs being a traffic control device, we want to make sure that those come out if they're not warranted.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
One other part to this discussion is that at the initial point that cut-through traffic starts to become a problem, at least what I've noticed in a couple of areas, one of them in Meridian where you're referring to is speeding. And that was why we put this stuff down And there might be a component here that law enforcement can help with when it comes right down to it. And we didn't have that cooperation, in my opinion, only in Boise when we had our Maple Grove project. We have over there off of Eagle. And having that help, let me tell you, it makes a lot of difference too. If someone's going to pay $100 to go 40 in a 20 zone, they need to feel that pain. Thanks.
Yeah, Madam President, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to share two experiences in my 1 year tenure here of dealing with that particular issue. One was I think it was the Pierce, it wasn't a project I was familiar with. I think it was in President Gold's district. We actually had someone come to our meeting and wait till the end to compliment ACHD on their work of dealing with the cut-through traffic measures through their neighborhood. You don't see that very often, so that was nice to hear. And then I had an issue in my district that wasn't an ACHD project, but it was a utility project or something going on Boise Avenue. And whatever that permit holder had planned did not work. BPD was involved. I was getting calls from neighbors. And so in that case, I just called the director. I don't know who you should call if you're not a commissioner, to get an inspector out there and deal with it. I think there was an issue on Overland too, a similar signs were confusing, something. I would immediately not wait and just call whoever, maybe Tom or whoever the right person is, to send an inspector out, because some of these things you need to deal with right away. So anyway, that's always an available option should things, for whatever reason, go awry.
Any additional comments or questions on this item? All right. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to item 2, which is the Locust Grove and Meridian Road's preferred route evaluation discussion. And just for the commission members, this came up as we go through our 5-year plan, as council's trying to give you direction on which one is where they would like to see investment made, and wanted to also get some feedback on the pros and cons from staff's perspective, so they can help make that recommendation to you appropriately. So with that, thank you for being here, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam President, members of the Commission and Council. For the record, my name is Tom Laws, and I'm the Planning Manager with the Ada County Highway District. And like the Mayor mentioned, this conversation has been going on a little less than a year now between our staffs, and it's been an interest of the Meridian Transportation Commission as well. So I was asked to come today, present a little bit on the Locust Grove and Meridian trade-offs. When we are talking Meridian Road and Locust Grove, we're largely referring to the section between Chinden Road and Ustick, but for the purposes of this conversation today, I'm generally going to use the interstate to the south and Chinden to the north as we look at some of the data points behind these two corridors. So just at a high level, when we're talking Meridian Road, some of the features along this corridor, it has direct access through an interchange to I-84 and also the connection to State Highway 69 to the south. It traverses downtown Meridian core along with Main Street and has several regional attractors, including Sellers Park, more or less in the central section, Albertsons to the north, and Winco to the south. With Locust Grove, there is no direct access to the interstate. However, there is an overpass that connects you to the southern portions of Meridian and beyond. And adjacent regional attractors here include the Idaho State University Meridian campus, more or less to the south, and then Fred Meyer, more central. With both of these corridors, however, they're major north-south connections, not only for Meridian, but for the region. And there's a variety of different schools along both corridors. When looking at current conditions, most of this data here comes from our traffic team and recent traffic counts over the last year or two. I broke this up largely looking from the south headed to north. So on the top table, we have Meridian Road. And as you can see, the section further to the south, I-84 to Franklin Road, we have 3 lanes on Meridian, 3 lanes on Main Street, and an average daily traffic of just over 50,000 vehicles. Speed limit here is 35 miles per hour, and it's largely commercial land uses. As you head further north, the 2 counts I pulled, Cherry to Ustick, and then 1 from Ustick to McMillan, we vary from 5 lanes down to 2 to 3. And the volumes, daily volumes start to decrease as well, 27,000 during that first segment, and then as few as 16,000 as you head further north. 40 miles per hour and residential for both these segments as well. When looking at Locust Grove, that southern portion is 5 lanes, but the average daily traffic is about half, and largely that's likely due to the lack of the interchange there. So you're looking at roughly 23,000 counts with 40 miles per hour speed limit, and that mixed residential commercial land uses. And then similar pattern here as you head further north with Fairview to Ustick and Ustick to McMillan. We vary from 3 lanes to 2, 20,000 to 15,000 daily trips, and that 40 miles per hour in residential land uses. Looking at current efforts on both of these corridors, directly from our ACHD adopted 2026-2030 5-year plan, there are 2 active efforts. Both of these are on Locust Grove. The first being a concept study that we kicked off last year between Fairview and Ustick. We aim to wrap up that concept this year or early next fiscal year, with design kicking off 2028 to 2029, and land acquisition in the 26-2030 plan to start in 2030. As a reminder, this was the City of Meridian's #2 priority in last year's priority list that you provided to us. And then the second effort, this is really tied to the larger Fairview effort, but I wanted to throw it in here as the major intersection with Locust Grove, where we've completed the design in 2023, wrapped up right-of-way or land use acquisitions last year, and are moving toward construction in 2028. And this project was the #3 priority from the city last year. Looking up to the future with our next formally adopted ACHD plan, the 2025-2045 CIP. I know most of you are familiar with this. Our Chief of Operations and Infrastructure, Justin Lucas, came and presented in the fall. But with this plan, just to kind of refresh your memory, it was adopted formally by our commission in December of last year, 2025. And with the CIP, it's a very technical document, took over 2 years to complete, and really relies on the Idaho Development Impact Fee Act in terms of key things that we have to look at. Specifically, one item that we relied on was the Compass Regional Travel Demand Model for that. So when we look at the region's growth, employment factors, job factors, housing, what comes up out of that and through this adopted plan is 2 Meridian Road corridors were identified, the Ustick to McMillan corridor or section, which had a estimated build-out year through that modeling exercise of somewhere between 2026 and 2030. So this is the really preferred range or recommended range from that data. Proposed improvements include reconstruction and widening. It was determined that this was impact fee eligible, and the project cost came in just about $8 million. The next segment to the north, McMillan to Chinden, had an estimated year of 2041 to 2045. Once again, that reconstruction widening, it is impact fee eligible and just under $10 million for the project cost. When we look at Locust Grove, there's a few differences here. So that first segment, Fairview to Ustick, which, as I mentioned, we have an active concept study going on. We had a estimated build-out year of 2031 to 2035, reconstruction widening again. But the biggest difference is it was determined that this was an existing deficiency. So the level of traffic, level of service for this section is already failing today, so it is not impact fee eligible. It would have to come from general fund dollars or other sources. And in this case, the project cost was just under $11 million. Similarly, the next section to the north, Ustick to McMillan, was found to be that outer date for the build year 2041 to 45, was not impact fee eligible, and had a project cost of just under $6 million. That last column I haven't mentioned yet, but it's the corridor preservation only. And so what that means is projects that are identified in that adopted CIP that do not have funding identified for design and construction, the strategy and the recommendation is just to focus on the right-of-way acquisition when it becomes available through existing development. So, or upcoming development. So both with that Ustick McMillan section and the McMillan to Chinden, the out years were that 2041 to 45. However, there was no construction or design identified, so just that right-of-way preservation. And I apologize, that was a lot of information there. But so that being said, when ACHD staff looks and compares these two based on our adopted documents, we would recommend Meridian Road being the preferred prioritization and really the main items that I covered so far. So the direct access to 84 in downtown Meridian as compared to Locust Grove. The vehicle volumes, especially towards the south, are almost double that of Locust Grove. The segments per the Compass Travel Demand Model show a higher need for Meridian. And then, as I mentioned, Locust Grove, several segments are not impact fee eligible and are only identified as corridor preservation, where Meridian is not. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Council, Commission, questions?
Tom, this is kind of a pop quiz because when I saw this item on our agenda, I was giving it a lot of thought, utilizing the concept of if we build it, they will come, and wondering that if Meridian Road is prioritized, what that will do to downtown. Because it's pretty backed up here a lot of the time. And if it comes, because everything is built out, there's some parts of this road that you can't widen. So and yet if Locust Grove were built out and people came there, which is what I believe would happen, you'd probably have a little less impact here downtown. Just my thought. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you for this. This was, I really appreciate sort of all the detail. I live on Meridian Road, just clear by Ustick, and travel north quite a bit. And it's interesting. You have a lot of flow, then all of a sudden you hit Settlers Park and there's not much there. And it's been kind of problematic, especially in the evening. Kind of curious if you would have any data or comments about once Linder Road overpass is done and then that becomes more of a throughway. Is that going to affect any of the traffic counts would you expect on Meridian Road? Does that have any sort of determination or how it would maybe change some thinking when that's completed, or is that not really relevant to what you've done?
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Council Member, great question. And I think it ties a little bit into Commissioner Goldthorpe's comments as well. Through the CIP, as I mentioned, we rely heavily on that Compass Travel Demand Model, and what that focuses on, and it incorporates heavily through the Compass Demographic Advisory Group, is our city's comprehensive plans, what the vision for the future really is for these corridors or our land uses. And so through Communities in Motion, through that demographic work, it does take into account what are the city's visions for those areas going out to 2040, 2045. And then we're able to take that and incorporate it through that model. Whether we're talking Black Cat, Linder, the model does account for things like that. And one of the best examples is Highway 16. And how is that going to take trips off of a Black Cat, for example? How is Linder going to change once the overpass is in? And so we know that the model, it accounts for that. It's not perfect by any means, but the nice thing is it's updated so regularly that we're constantly able to input the best information we have. And so those assumptions have been made with these.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
Thank you. Yeah, I share an interest in this as well, just based on, I cover District 2 and so Meridian Road, it runs through my district on the northern end. I couldn't agree more. I think what we've been struggling with as a council is we've been trying to prioritize, and even like with our transportation commission for a long time, they've been recommending corridors to improve, right? With the thought being we improve a whole corridor, then it actually moves the needle in terms of getting people where they need to go. I think the biggest thing that we're facing in that north part of Meridian is just huge bottlenecking on not only on Meridian Road, but Locust Grove as well. I mean, it's a huge issue. I'm excited to see that this segment is a focus of Meridian Road, basically from Ustick to McMillan. That is a horrible bottleneck, but then right at the end of that bottleneck, you have Heritage Middle School. So what I'm kind of struggling with is like, what is the right balance long-term of widening and prioritizing these roadways, but then with a lot of regard for safety, which I think needs to be a huge element as we think through this. And as you guys are formulating your plans, whether it's for Locust Grove or whether it's for Meridian Road, but ultimately we need some kind of a connection to Chinden that's getting people where they need to go on an expedited basis. We're hoping Linder Road helps solve the problem, but when it comes to road widening and balancing that with safety elements with a school, with middle schoolers, like how do you guys think about that?
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilmember, great question. And I think the Ustick corridor probably provides the best example for that. And tying into Brian's presentation previously, in a very short time frame, in a couple of years, we're going to have Ustick more or less complete within Ada County. And as you traverse from the eastern side in the city of Boise out to Star Road, 10 Mile, and so forth in Meridian, you can see how ACHD, the nation has really evolved over time in terms of safety. And the best example of that is with multi-use pathways. And so historically, best practice nationally, and what you see further to the east on Ustick are on-street bike facilities, attached sidewalks. And over the past few years, with direction from the commission, we've really moved away from that on our major arterial roads and are now focused on detached multi-use pathways. You see them on several segments of recently completed Eagle Road, Linder, 10 Mile, for example. But that's probably going to be the biggest difference maker, especially by Heritage and the other schools along the corridor, is for those most vulnerable users, they will have a detached facility that they'll be able to use to get to the grocery store, to get to the school, and so forth.
Having deja vu because I had a similar issue, I don't know, 14 years ago or more, when I was working for a city to the east, and they were struggling with Overland Road, which would be 7 lanes. I mean, the big numbers. And one thing I suggested to the consultant is that we needed to better understand who's on the road. Were they longer trips or were they shorter trips? Because if they were the shorter trips within versus coming from Canyon County, for example, and I think they did a select link analysis to try to tease out who was traveling on the road and why, so that if there was a shorter trips, the next evaluation was to look at, can we build the network, the collectors and things to more efficiently use the capacity on the arterial. So I don't know this area as well, but I would probably look if there was a way to get a better understanding of who's on these arterials and can they be offloaded to mid-mile collectors or a denser network. So just a thought. That was one thing I know, and part of Overland Road back then even was pretty well developed, you know, in the county even. So, but where there were opportunities to get more collectors and get people off of the arterial if they were just going to Fred Meyer or wherever. That was kind of the next level of the analysis. And I think that was the select link analysis helped with that evaluation. So just a thought.
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilmember Strader, while we're talking going down the road, getting across them is always a challenge. And the wider you build those roads, we recognize that. And so that's why also through this process, ACHD's continued, as we've evolved, we've continued to develop more two-stage crossings where you only have to cross 2 lanes at a time versus a 3-lane crossing, you generally would go all the way. And so we try and find ways to incorporate more of that into the design of our projects. We have good partnership with the city of Meridian in terms of implementing vertical elements in our projects, whether it be trees or landscaping or other things that can calm traffic in and around those areas. And we look for ways to incorporate those things into our designs as well. And so we, on both of these roads, you do have schools. And Meridian's done a great job of having a lot of the schools turns more inward to the neighborhoods and not on those arterial roadways. But where you do have that, we try and incorporate some of those other features that would help with that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
So I want to say this very delicately. Sometimes we're Team Meridian Road, sometimes we're Team Locust Grove. And we don't always agree. And I tend to lean more toward Team Locust Grove because when I look at the schools on Meridian Road, I see that when we're talking, they're more short trips. But when I see an Idaho State University campus built over the next 30 years, it's going to draw across this valley. I see long trips and I see a lot more traffic coming in. When I see some of the projects that we've approved on Locust Grove, I see a lot more trips. And I know what the figures look like now, but we're trying again to look down the road to what that's going to be and what's going to be the best solution. And I can't help but remember the location of the police department is right off Locust Grove. And we have a fire station sitting right on Locust Grove. And we need to remember when we look at where we put our priority corridors, we cannot forget public safety and how quick they need to be able to get out and respond to things. So to me, it's not a matter of, do we do one or the other? This is a matter of we need them both. And how do we actually come to that conclusion of which one gets done first and for what reasons and how we make that determination. But I love the data. It just doesn't, that's not the crystal ball looking into the future telling me what that's going to be.
And I don't know if this is piggybacking. I'm going to make a statement, ask a question, and try to get direction for the council on this topic as we move into it. Because I learned something that I'd never, apparently if I've heard this before, I didn't know it. I didn't know that widening the road wasn't eligible for impact fees. And so I'm like, well, how do you make sure a road is eligible for impact fees? Or if you don't do something, can it not be eligible for impact fees in the future? Or is that already decided for every road in the county right now? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to lay this into, the commission just recently made a decision on increasing your impact fees, which I assume means that your plan is going to grow as those come in because you're going to have more capability to add in projects. Should this council be looking at whether a project is impact fee eligible or not as a deciding factor or as a factor to consider during prioritization, because it may or may not have a greater likelihood of being funding compared to something that would come from a general funding source? Yeah, I was going to tell you, Ryan, that you may want to come back up. And we didn't talk about this in our conversation, but it's led me to that question. When I look at that thing, it says, well, Locust Grove, you're going to have to, because that's just for the right-of-way acquisition that you have dollars in there, not others. And I assume the rest of it would be general fund as well. So how does that How do you see that playing in, or should the council consider that when looking at prioritization of projects to ACHD?
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Council Commission, this is definitely the challenge we face. This is why a 5-year plan, a CIP is difficult. A project becomes not impact fee eligible when the traffic on it becomes so much from existing traffic that it overwhelms the capacity. And so when you don't widen a project fast, I guess you could say fast enough, you end up in a place where it becomes not impact fee eligible. So whether or not you need to get into that complexity in weighing things out, I think a lot of your conversation today is, and some of the things, Councilmember Overton and Councilmember Schrader have brought up is, you also have to look at what you see the vision of your community being. You have schools, how do you support those? You have public service, how do you support those? Ultimately, we agree. Our plans show that both of those roads need widened. It's just a question of what comes first, and really that some of those things we can't necessarily answer for you. What we can say is from our projections, one Meridian Road looks to have the greatest benefit. But ultimately, this is why we look to you in terms of your vision and what you want your community to look like in the near term.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, so one question I had that you kind of answered, I think, through the kind of timing of these various segments of each corridor, but which corridor would be widened first if we all the way from the interstate to Chinden, let's say? Is it obvious to you that because of the study that's underway already with Locust Grove, and that's something I noticed in your own 5-year prioritization and some of our priorities was there's a lot happening on that segment right now with the study. It just doesn't go all the way north. And so a question I had was, if we prioritize Locust Grove, does that mean we're going to get a complete corridor faster? Or is there some reason that you think, maybe it's the impact fee piece, which also is news to me. If we prioritize that instead, would we be able to get that segment done faster? I think I'm just trying to understand if we took one of those two paths, at the end of the day, which path would get us a complete corridor from somewhere around the interstate to Chinden, I think would be a question I would have.
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Councilmember Schrader, well, you currently have 2 of those miles already widened along Meridian Road. So you have 2 miles left on Meridian Road, whereas on Locust Grove, you have 3. Some of the conversation in the concept today is it going to be a 3-lane road? Is it going to be a 4-lane road or a 5-lane road? It's already a 3-lane road today with built out sidewalks and bike facilities. The question is that the vision that you have for your city, or do you want it to be widened? Do you want to focus on completing corridors that don't have all those facilities first? That would be Meridian Road versus where Locust Grove already has a lot of those facilities, at least in that one section there. So it really is a question. For a long time, the conversation was between Locust Grove and Meridian that those 2 miles between Ustick and Chinden would be 3-lane. And that was the plan because of the schools, because of all these other things. But I think as the community has grown, some of that perspective has changed. And the commission accepted that, and it recognized that we would preserve for an ultimate build out of 5 lanes. But what that looks like, we could, what I would recommend in terms of your priorities is to pick one. And to prioritize that one, and that will get one of them done faster. If you try and do both at the same time, you're not going to get a complete corridor faster. And so while Locust Grove is in that study phase, part of the reason it doesn't have construction dollars today is because we don't know what it's going to be and whether or not we need to prioritize those funds. And so we're, as we work through that concept and work with the city in terms of that vision, we'll have a little bit better idea of whether or not what that project's going to be, and is it going to be wider or is it going to stay as it is, and what the next step would be there too.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Strader.
I appreciate that. I think for us, we certainly need to have more conversations on our end. I think Council President Overton did a nice job of kind of explaining there are other elements that we consider as well, like fire response times and things that are other pain points in the city that we have to kind of balance out. I personally just get nervous about planning a build out to like a 5-lane road where we directly have a middle school and a lot of children crossing that road without a really strong sense of how we would solve for safety issues. Up until on that road between kind of Settlers Park and until you get up to McMillan, the bottlenecking though is completely unsustainable. So it really is going to be a tough one for us to try to puzzle through. But based on your work plan today, like based on where everything is planned out today, like which segment would be completed first theoretically? That would be my question.
Okay. President Gold, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Strader, per our 5-year plan, neither of them are set to be built out in the next 5 years. Per our CIP, that's what Tom was presenting, and Meridian would come first.
Okay.
But ultimately, and if I may, our CIP is a projection of need. It's not necessarily a projection of when we would build those things. And we look at your priorities as well as what's happening to really determine that. So I know we're all kind of standing here looking at each other going, so which one? And I know those are hard conversations, and we know that there's a lot to weigh out in that, and we appreciate your seriousness. Ultimately, the city of Meridian is extremely diligent in how it reviews its priorities, and we appreciate the complex list that you give us that really emphasizes what needs to get done, and we like to try and make those things happen. So
thanks.
Don't go anywhere, Ryan. Since it came as a surprise to probably more than just two about Locust Grove not being impact fee eligible, and you described that as being a function of the traffic, the level of service.
Mm-hmm.
If Meridian Road is built out first and a sufficient number of cars don't use Locust Grove Road as a result, can that become impact fee eligible again?
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, theoretically, yes. In practice, you rarely see it. You rarely see enough traffic shift just because you have a growing community at the same time.
Yeah, one metric we haven't talked about, and maybe it's because my background as a planner, I'm always less concerned about number of lanes and all these things, but the experience of the driver and what's the travel time down the corridor and how is that going to change over time? Is that a metric that we can help provide to that decision process? You know, if we focus on this one, then we'll have a travel time, whatever that is, so many minutes. But if we ignore this one, how is that going to impact the travel time? I took a note and I put an asterisk, Council President Overton, about the emergency response time. And I think that would be a good thing to understand better is the travel time comparison. If you do one versus the other, you know, what's that look like? And is the congestion on Meridian is that acceptable? You know, I know what a bottleneck is, but I'm more curious on how many minutes is that, you know, and is that a good trade-off for the different investments? So just a thought.
Any further questions or comments on this item? Okay, I guess you'll, thanks for the information, and council will take it under advisement. And just we did get a letter from ACHD regarding the timeframe for our 5-year work plan. We were granted a few extra weeks to run through our process to give our Transportation Commission as well as council a couple of opportunities. So appreciate the latitude and flexibility on that one to help us weigh these topics. So, okay. With that, Mr. Hood, we'll turn this over to you for upcoming throughputs. I'll say information more than discussion, since we're at the end and this is just meant to let everyone get on the same page.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, President Gold, commission members, council members. My name is Caleb Hood. I'm the deputy director here for the city of Meridian in the community development department. I got 2 projects I want to just provide you a pretty brief update on, that the city's involved with some studies and some evaluations of some of the roadways and neighborhoods in the city. More to come, as the mayor just alluded to, probably in the coming months, but wanted to, again, if you hadn't heard about these, give you an idea that we're working on them, and we'll probably be having more discussions on both these projects here again in the coming days. So the first one I wanted to touch on is 3rd Street, East 3rd Street. The connection is not new. The city and ACHD have been talking about East 3rd Street and that alignment for 20 plus years now. In 2009, we both adopted as agencies an alignment that you can kind of see on the screen there. It's the candy cane designation of 3rd Street. Today, 2.5 Street kind of serves as 3rd Street, because 3rd Street dead ends, if you will, into the Coal Valley play ball fields. And so this was evaluated and studied in 2008, 2009, and right now on the books anyways, that is the alignment that has been discussed and again is endorsed by both of our agencies. The purpose of the study and the corridor was and remains the creation of a collector level street connection that parallels Main Meridian, giving another north-south connection into and out of downtown. Doing so is intended to reduce the traffic pressures on the couplet, allow downtown residents to improve route directness, foster a quieter and calmer street for bicyclists and pedestrians to use. That 2009 study was conducted in conjunction with the timing of the Meridian split corridor. So as we were figuring out what Main Meridian looked like and some one-way couplets and things like that, this was a companion study that was evaluated at that time. Both ACHD and the city, again, benefit from understanding what this looks like. Some of the rationale for why the alignment, again, that you see here on the screen and that was chosen was the separation or the signal spacing from Main Street to 2.5 Street was too close. So 3rd Street got you just a little bit further away. So under the premise of having a signalized intersection on Fairview at Meridian, at Main, and then at whatever this 3rd Street alignment where it intersects Fairview could also occur in the future. So I think that was some of the rationale for why, again, this current alignment was chosen back in the day. Excuse me. Several conditions and assumptions present in the 2008 study have changed. And as part of the update to the downtown master plan, the Urban Renewal Agency for the city hired a consultant to reevaluate this study essentially, and even look a little bit closer at actually using 2.5 Street at Fairview. That was dismissed fairly early on in that study, again, because that intersection got too close to Main Street and didn't think you could have another signal that in that close proximity. So they're exploring previously unexamined alignments that I just mentioned and updating the status of the 2008 conditions and assumptions, including some cost estimates of what that would look like for right-of-way and construction, and incorporating those findings and recommendations into a white paper for the city. And then again, eventually ACHD to also reconsider. I do think there's been some conversations by that consultant with some folks at ACHD, and obviously they've talked to the city council about this a couple of times now. So again, no decisions have been made. We're still fact finding and gathering information. I will mention, this came up a little bit, improvements to East 3rd are included in ACHD's 5-year plan right now between Carlton and Franklin. So 3/4 of this corridor is currently in the ACHD 5-year plan for design in 2028 and construction in 2030. Franklin to Carlton was recently removed, I think to some degree, because of all these questions that still remain there. So the finishing of this corridor is no longer in the 5-year plan. So This is the city's #2 priority on what was previously called community programs projects. I understand that's going to be called safety and compliance here. But this is our #2, a high priority project in our downtown that we really do want to kind of bring to conclusion. So that's the brief update, some notes on that. A lot of history there. So hopefully I covered it and you get the gist of the corridor and the alignment study.
Maybe just add, well, I think one of the biggest changes was the free flowing right went away, because that free flowing right basically almost came into 2.5 Street at the time, and now that has ended. It is dead end. So really the distance between 2.5 is no different than Meridian and Main as it currently exists. Just for some, I wasn't here, but that's, I think, one of the big differences, but okay. And more to come in conversations on that one. So if you want to move on to the second one.
So the second one, and again, this one has some pretty rich history as well. We, in fact, will reach out to your traffic department. It seems like probably about every other year to ask for some traffic calming or to evaluate in the Woodbridge subdivision, some concerns for cut through and speeding through that neighborhood. Today, there's only one way to get basically between Eagle and Locust Groves between I-84 and Franklin Road, and that is through the Woodbridge subdivision. The first roughly quarter mile or so of that subdivision is a designated collector with no front-on housing, but then it splits kind of around some open space in our just local streets with front-on housing. So again, this is kind of a long-standing issue for the community. So the city did kick off a, a study that we're calling Stratford to Touchmark, which are 2 other roads that are in this general vicinity. Touchmark Way is basically right behind St. Luke's Hospital off of Franklin and Eagle, and Stratford is back, and Waltman are back off of Meridian Road. So it's a little over 2 miles of a study area, and kind of zooming in, Locust Grove almost being the middle of that study area. It's a project focused on transportation improvements that enhance local connectivity and efficiency, enhance public services, and support future economic development. This effort was actually supported for and called for in our current comprehensive plan. It was adopted in 2019. We made some changes to some land uses out here, and we say we need some further evaluation of the roadway network to make those land uses really come to fruition. So we're following up on that, and again, looking at some of those opportunities that may exist. One of the other things, and Councilman Overton mentioned this in some of his comments when we were talking about Locust Grove or Meridian, or Locust Grove or Locust Grove or Meridian, which one first, is Idaho State University. So they do have a presence already on the joint campus with the West Ada School District and ICOM, but they are going through the process and master planning for their a substantial campus here on Locust Grove. So that was another driving force why looking at this area for transportation improvements and improving some of the existing network deficiencies, if you want to call it that, to make those through connections between Meridian and Eagle Road. So those are probably the 2 biggest reasons to look at and potentially improve access and connectivity in these areas, with some known redevelopment coming and some potential on the horizon as well. I will just, Tom was involved a little bit in this, but Edenson's been great. He's been part of our stakeholder team that's working on this. Carl Anderson on my team is the project manager, and he's here for any questions. I believe he was here. There he is. So Carl's working on that. The city did select Kittleson and Associates along with Logan Simpson to help them look at some of the land use assumptions and, again, the economic impacts to some of the alternatives that are being evaluated. We kicked this off on July 31st. The project is broken up into tasks that include plan review and transportation system inventory, stakeholder outreach, and concept development, and a white paper. The project is currently wrapping up, with the final concepts and white paper currently being finalized in preparation to present the project findings to council on January 27th. So a couple weeks, we should be back, and Carl will be back presenting that to city council. The project has identified 3 alternative alignments, and with consideration being given to the impacts of land use, utility, existing conditions, and feasibility, the city anticipates that the next steps will also include evaluating approach and work with ACHD to update the master street map. So right now we don't have an additional collector in this general vicinity east of Locust Grove. So we do envision that being an outcome, and maybe some other changes to the master street map were needed. Potential to update land uses as needed on the city's comprehensive future land use map, and maybe even some of the text of the comp plan as well. And then there's potential for additional evaluation for specific areas and intersection treatments. I kind of mentioned some of these 90-degree curves that occur. Freeway drive at Wells is not ideal either if we're going to have a collector network through here. So looking at some of those sharp curves and how we can actually design and eventually construct a roadway network that gets the traffic patterns we're hoping for. We don't have cost estimates, design drawings, or further utility work, but that's more some additional next steps depending on how this is received with council and some of the direction we've given. And obviously ACHD we need you to be partners and at the table as we further these conversations. So that's again, kind of a quick overview of that project as well, but I'll sit or have Carl come up for any questions you may have on this one.
Thank you. Council Commission, any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Just a comment, and really kind of a comment about both of these projects that Caleb's talked about. He did a fantastic job. But unfortunately, ownership of some of these problems sits up here at the dais because we identified 3rd Street over 20 years ago that we wanted 3rd Street to cut all the way through to Fairview. But we never preserved that corridor. So over the period of time, we allowed some developments to come in that pretty much handicapped us going in, and now we're moving new developments to put a roadway system in because we talked about it 20 years ago. So it's why we're kind of re-looking at 3rd Street to 2.5 as being our pathway through, because we've allowed a lot of stuff to come in. Now move to the second one we're talking about. It was almost 10 years ago. I met with Justin Lucas talking about how we would do a roadway through, a real roadway through this area that didn't go through a residential subdivision. And at that time, Justin said, well, ultimately, you got a signal at Central and you got a signal at St. Luke's Lane. It's how do we get there? And that's kind of what we've been dealing with this whole time is we have the signals, connection between the two of them, but my fear is I don't want to be talking about this for 20 years and we continue to allow more developments to occur until we don't have a solution. So what we want to do is start to preserve some of these preferred roadway areas in our city and work together to get a solution and not allow other developments to come in and totally destroy the vision for how we want to see these areas develop.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Excellent. Well, much more to come on both those issues. So.
Mr. Mayor, I just
Sure.
want to say thanks so much for the opportunity for the joint meeting. We always appreciate getting a chance to hear from you all directly and to discuss these important issues going on in the city. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming here again, but we'll be going to your new place next time we decide to get together. So with that, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Council will call this meeting to order. For the record, it's January 13th, 2026 at 6:04 PM. We'll begin tonight's regular city council meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Taylor. Councilwoman Strader.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would all please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay. Next up is a community invocation, which tonight will be delivered by Mick Armstrong. If you'd all please join us in the community invocation or take this as a moment of silence and reflection. Mick?
Father, thank you so much for how you blessed our community and for the leadership that we have, and we pray for their continued wisdom. Often as citizens, we have conflicting interests and it requires somebody to mediate and make a decision, and we thank you for those decisions. And we thank you for our city services, the protection of our police and fire, and our just the variety of services that care for our needs and keep us safe when we sleep at night without worrying about whether we're going to be safe. And I just thank you for your goodness, and that we would continue to be a light to this valley and an encouragement to people, and that we would seek the best for our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate you. Okay, up next is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
there's one note on the agenda. If you're here for item 12, latitude 43, they're going to request a continuance to February 24th. We'll address that when we get down to item 12, but other than that, there's no changes to the adoption, and I move we approve as printed.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. Okay, next item up is the Community Risk Reduction Week proclamation. If I could ask Carly and Brooke, if you're going to join as well, you decide on that. Join me down at the thing. And Brad, you know, you're all welcome to come, but I figured nothing like a good time to introduce a new member of the team. So Carly, while I come down there, would you like to introduce the newest member of the team to council?
Speak in the microphone?
Yes, please.
In the microphone. Yeah, so this is Brooke Cortez. She's our newest CRR one specialist in Meridian. So she's going to work to continue to bridge that gap that we've had over the last few years with public education, community outreach, and risk reduction efforts in our community. So we'll highlight some of that in the little speech that I have prepared after the proclamation. So.
And not only that, she does her homework. That's what I'm going to say to all new employees. She's awesome. So with that, I'll go and read the proclamation, give it right back to you. So whereas every 23 seconds, a fire department in the United States responds to a fire somewhere in the nation and responds to a growing number of medical calls for service, surpassing 80% of total call volume in some jurisdictions. And whereas community risk reduction is a data-informed process to identify and prioritize local risks, followed by integrated and strategic investment of resources to reduce their occurrence and impact. And whereas the value of community support from local, state, and national partners to address community risk is recognized to meet the demands on paid, combination, and volunteer members of the fire service. And whereas the goal of community risk reduction is to reduce the occurrence and impact of emergency events for both community members and emergency responders through deliberate action in the areas of the 5 E's of education, engineering, enforcement, emergency response, and economic incentive. And whereas the city of Meridian supports the community risk reduction efforts to help keep our community safe and thriving. Therefore, I, Mayor Robert E. Simpson, hereby proclaim January 19th through 25th, 2026 as Community Risk Reduction Week in the city of Meridian, and call upon the citizens to join this grassroots initiative of fire service professionals across the nation to raise awareness of the importance of community risk reduction in the fire service community and an opportunity to make communities safer. It's the 13th day of January 2026. So I'm going to present this to you, Carly, and turn the microphone over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor and council members and members of our community for the opportunity to be here today and for recognizing Community Risk Reduction Week. So CRR Week is a national effort led by fire service professionals across the nation to highlight full scope of community risk reduction and its role in the modern fire service delivery. With the continued support of our city leadership and the dedicated work of the men and women of the Meridian Fire Department, our community has made tremendous progress in reducing risk and improving safety over the past year. Progress that reflects a thoughtful, data-informed approach to both prevention and emergency response. Community risk reduction, as the mayor said, is often described through the 5 E's: education, engineering, enforcement, economic incentives, and emergency response. Supporting these principles is intentional, behind-the-scenes work in this division, using data to identify the risks in our community, partnerships to implement solutions, and measuring outcomes to ensure our efforts are making a difference. CRR is not a standalone function of the fire department. It directly supports and enhances our emergency services capabilities. Through the strategic use of technology, IT systems, and GIS, we analyze emergency response data, identify trends, and focus on reducing overall response times through targeted evidence-based methods. This allows us to deploy resources more effectively and strengthen community safety before, during, and after an emergency. Fall prevention has been a primary focus in this division over the past year, and in the third quarter of 2024, falls and lift assists in Meridian accounted for 24.5% of all calls for service, nearly 1 in every 4 calls and higher than the national average. Through partnerships, home safety assessments, and targeted education, that number dropped to 18.4% by the third quarter of 2025 in 1 year span. That reduction represents fewer injuries, fewer 911 calls, and a more resilient emergency response system. And it underscores the importance of tracking outcomes, not just activities. Beyond fall prevention, this division continues to support our most vulnerable residents through smoke and carbon monoxide alarm services. A recent partnership with the Idaho Health Corps has expanded our capacity to meet community demands while reducing non-emergent 911 calls, ensuring emergency responses remain available when seconds truly matter. Our prevention efforts also include CPR, AED, and stop the bleed training, car seat checks and installations, home safety assessments, fire and life safety education in Meridian schools, and much more. Each program strengthens preparedness, resilience, and response readiness across all ages and neighborhoods. None of this work happens in isolation. This past year has been defined by collaboration. Healthcare partners, schools, volunteers, regional fire agencies, and community organizations all working and coming together. That collaboration has grown into the launch of the Treasure Valley Community Risk Reduction Cooperative, creating a shared regional approach to reducing risk. Most notably, our fall prevention program is now being presented at the national level as a model for how data-informed, partnership-focused community risk reduction can produce measurable, sustainable impact. As this proclamation recognizes, prevention saves lives, strengthens emergency response, and reduces strain on public safety systems. The impact of community risk reduction in Meridian is measurable, the approach is intentional, and the results are helping shape a safer, more resilient future for our community. Thank you for your leadership, your continued support, and your recognizing of Community Risk Reduction Week. Thank you. You want to be considered? Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick comment. I'm so incredibly proud of Carly's team and all that she's accomplished. And I just have to say that every time I've sat down with her and her team, the data-driven approach to actually preventing emergencies has been so eye-opening to me. And I know it was so hard to wait to fill that position. And I mean, that is really hard. And we were in a tough spot and you had to wait. And I just wanted to compliment you for doing that with grace and integrity and continuing to push things forward as much as you could. You've made a huge impact. Your team has made a huge impact. And now it really is fulfilling to see that our public overall in Meridian is so strongly supportive of emergency services. And now that we're actually able to responsibly fill that needed position, it just makes me so happy. But I just wanted to compliment you and your whole team for that.
Yeah. And hopefully we're happy with what we got by waiting. Something's come along. Seriously, she brought me iced tea. No one's ever gave, yeah. She's like ice cream or iced tea, but she came with iced tea, so it's great, great. Yeah. Anyways, with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
no changes to the consent agenda. I move that we approve the consent agenda as published for the mayor to sign and the clerk to attest.
Have a motion second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so I'll move on to public forum. Okay. Mr. Clerk, anything anyone under public forum?
Mr. Mayor, there is nobody.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that, we'll move on to department reports. And now that we've cleared most of the fire department out of the room, Chief, I think it's safe for you to come forward for our drone first responder presentation. Turn this over to Chief Bassett-Shea.
Thank you. In the end, this will benefit them as well. So first off, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you tonight. But before we start into our presentation, I'd like to highlight the work that the men and women of the Meridian Police Department completed in 2025. Many of you may have seen in our monthly Chiefs communication or on social media, but I think it's important that we highlight it here as well. Little wider reach maybe. First, we had a total of 59,143 calls for service in 2025. Now, this number that I just gave you is a little bit different than what I put in my initial communication by about 1,527 more calls for service. And that only highlights why you don't have the chief work with your stats. That's why I have analysts. That's why they get paid and they do their job well. We had over 12,025 traffic stops, almost 13% more than we had in 24. And now the numbers that we're most proud of, our crimes against persons are down 15%. Our crimes against property are down over 22%. And our crimes against society are down over 21%. And I know this is a good topic to get into while you were meeting with ACHD. Our emergency response time actually dropped by 5 seconds over from 2025 and 2024 to 3 minutes and 49 seconds. This means that when you call 911, once our officers are dispatched, you should have an officer on scene in under 4 minutes. With the growth and the traffic and the congestion, that's actually amazing. These numbers are just because of the collaborative efforts of our sworn officers and our professional staff. So thank you to them. I do want to be clear on one important point, though. While these numbers reflect a positive year, they do not mean that our work is done, nor do they suggest that we can stand still. These outcomes are the result of deliberate effort, hard work, adaptability by our staff in a city that continues to grow and evolve. Sustaining these results into the future requires us to constantly evaluate what is coming next, not just what already occurred. As our population increases and calls for service continue to rise, we must ensure that we have the right balance of staffing, technology, and support systems in place to prevent officer burnout, maintain proactive community policing, and continue building public trust. Planning ahead is how we protect the progress we've made and ensure we are prepared for what lies ahead. As you know, hiring in law enforcement has been challenging for many years now. Year after year, we have openings with taxpayer money budgeted but not utilized. So over the years, I've tasked my command staff to come up with a plan to free up our officers so they can do what police want to do, go out and be proactive. Several years ago, we implemented a community service officer program where we utilize non-sworn professional staff to answer certain types of calls and to supplement sworn officers on various calls. Because of its success, we've expanded that program, and we now have 6 community service officers working in our patrol division, as well as 2 community service officers working in investigations. One of those community service officers working in our investigations division has become one of the more successful fraud investigators, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency in the Valley, which is extremely promising, I believe, to us, considering that the cost of a CSO is substantially less than a sworn officer. And those investigators don't need to be putting handcuffs on people. We have patrol officers and sworn officers to do that. So that may change the dynamics of our criminal investigations division as well. Now let's talk about technology. Next, the command staff went out and looked at ways we could utilize better technology to make our operations more efficient, effective, and safer for our community and our officers. They were tasked with coming back with a one-for-one comparison of officer costs to technology costs. We're pretty close. As well as how do these efficiencies from this technology and from the use of our community service officers affect our PAM model? And Captain Leslie will discuss that in the presentation. The mayor was very clear on that expectation, though. He wanted to make sure that the efficiencies were equivalent to the use of our officers. Because they did the heavy lifting, command will be presenting to you tonight. The main presenter is going to be Captain Jamie Leslie, but we also have Lieutenant Brandon Frazier here, as well as Captain Burl Stokes and Captain Sean Sopawaga. Lieutenant Ludwig is not here yet, but he will be here. Each one of them had a part in this, and they had their hands in different parts of the technology. And quite frankly, they're just going to be more articulate than I could be explaining each portion of our technology asked tonight. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, or I can turn it over to Captain Leslie now. All right.
Mayor, City Council, appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight. I spoke with many of you about this project as we've worked our way through it. It's a pretty complex project from start to finish, and there's a lot of moving parts. We're going to try to highlight the ones that are most important to the efficiencies that we clearly identified, although there are parts of the technology that we'll see also tremendous value in our officer response effectiveness and officer safety and interaction with the community. I'm going to go briefly over our staffing currently, where we have people currently assigned in our sworn staff personnel, and talk about our PAM number as it sits today. All right, Chris. Is that the first slide, Chris? Okay, a little bit of a delay. Where'd he go? Okay. So just a quick overview of the patrol allocation model. So we use it's a pretty complex matrix. We've been in front of you before and explained it, and it goes over our service expectations with our officers, the miles of roads that we have to patrol, how often, frequently we want them in our neighborhoods, how often or how much time of their patrol shift should be allotted to self-initiated activity. So as we go through that model, our current recommendation for our patrol staffing, which includes all first responders, traffic as a supervisor, sergeant down, and all patrol officers is 85. Currently, in that model, we have 67 personnel assigned to that. So our current authorized number is 151 officers. We currently have 17 open positions. If you break down all of our sworn personnel, we have 6 assigned to administration. We have 17 currently in our SRO division. At full capacity, that unit would be 20. CIDs at 24 with 4 opens. Traffic's at 9. We have 1 opening, but that's soon to be filled. And then at patrol, we have 58 actual patrol staff. That's sergeants and officers assigned to work the 6 shifts that we cover for the 24/7 coverage. In our OPS division, that's the academy and our onboarding staff, there is 6. And then currently in the pipeline, we have 6 in the academy, and I believe there's 2 currently in FTO. So those ones are The ones in FTO currently are certified officers, so we'll see their presence in our patrol teams here shortly. So our Axon, let's talk about Axon as our first person or company or option to look at for technology. They currently provide a service bundle to us, which is mostly centered around evidence collection. The new bundle that we're looking at is more about harnessing our technology advancements for streamlining workflows, force multiplication, providing faster service to the community, and then reduction to risk. So we started off back in the day with just the taser. It was just the weapon. We moved quickly into body-worn cameras. We have fleet cameras now. Our Axon Air is the software that monitors and tracks our current drone flights. And then evidence.com manages all of our video evidence. Our PRR requests are processed through there. So it does a pretty heavy lift on the technology side once the evidence is collected via our cameras. We're also currently testing their LPR program, which we're going to talk about a little bit later as well. A quick video, kind of give you a quick overview of what the Axon ecosystem is. And it's basically the system that we're looking at in that AI bundle package, which is the next package we're looking to purchase through Axon. And it kind of gives you a complete view of their products from start to finish and how they are incorporated into day-to-day law enforcement. Can you fire that up, Chris?
Captain, you can use the right and left arrows on the keyboard as well.
Yeah, it didn't. My mouse has disappeared. I don't have a mouse. That could be a good problem, I guess. Maybe I wasn't the right guy to talk about technology. Yes, there should be audio on it. Oh, it doesn't? It's a YouTube video. It should play audio. Oh. It doesn't work, Crispy. No audio? Let's skip it. So I'll try to walk you through what was in that video. So as a drone first responder in the Axon ecosystem, when the call starts, the technology starts, they dispatch a drone to the location of the call. It gets that first eyes onto that location, providing critical feedback to the responding units, whether they're fire, EMS, police, what's going on there. If there's vehicles that are leaving, how many versus just having a 911 call where somebody calls in and says, hey, this is what I got going on. Within a minute or two, we have a drone oversight that can then, we have an operator on the other side of that that can provide real information, real time to our responding units to help them better prepared to respond to that call for service. As it works through the technology, there's a portion they'll show in that video where body-worn camera has real-time translation for languages, up to 50 languages, real-time. So as the officer arrives on scene and the individual they're trying to help speaks a foreign language, it identifies the language that they're speaking, and then it allows them to start in real-time communicating back and forth with the individuals, understanding what their need is and what's going on. Draft one is something we've used for quite some time. Draft one is a component. It's an AI component that's approved by our IT through our AI policy. Basically what it does is it takes a body-worn camera recording. After a transcription is completed, it then puts it into a draft police report. It then opens up a screen that allows the officer to read the draft report, read the transcription, and watch or listen to the audio or video recording at the same time. And then they go back through and make the necessary changes to their report to make it read the way they want it to read. It just gives them a jump start to that report. And then they go in, do all the verification of what they want it to say, then they output that into their police report. We've seen a tremendous amount of savings in time on that product alone so far. Policy chat is an AI component that we load up all of our policies, procedures, and instruction manuals into, and an officer can ask our AI, how do I handle this situation? What do I need to do in this situation? It goes through our policies and procedures. It provides them the necessary guidelines so that they can be better prepared to handle that call on short notice. Brief one is another component similar to policy chat, but it takes large police reports and goes through them and provides you with basically a white page to say, this is the high points of that case. Here's the people involved. Here's the evidence associated with it. Here's kind of the gist of what happened, saving countless hours of our detectives or officers having to go through page by page and reviewing all of the data in there. ALPR expansion. We currently have the RECORE camera system, which is our license plate reader cameras. We worked with ACHD here a while back to partner with being able to relocate those infrastructure to their power poles, traffic light controls. We had ours mid-block in some locations. This will be actually in traffic locations, traffic intersections, and on traffic equipment. By doing that, we have better outcomes from the pictures. They're better lit. They're on traffic control devices already, so they're pretty obvious that they're there. And we'll roll that program into this product as well. Fusus is something we're using kind of already. We have a Fusus Lite. It's a dashboard that allows a supervisor to open up and see where all of the officers are at, where their body cameras are at, where their cars parked, where they're walking. We can jump into their videos and watch if there's something on a hot call or something like that. So we can be able to see how that call is going. Fusus also will have our drone platform move to it as well. So it'll all be one pane of glass for all of those things is what Fusus kind of brings all of these products onto the singular pane of glass. Peregrine technology is another technology that we've looked at. We spend countless hours, our analysts, the chief talked a little bit about statistical and data information. We have Power BI dashboards that we built with the help of IT. Peregrine is a software that basically mines all that data for us. So instead of an analyst having to go through and build charts or research information, it will query all of our current systems at once. We looked at this product about a year ago and held off on it. At the time, there was no other agencies in Ada County that were utilizing that product. Since then, Boise Police Department, the Ada County Sheriff's Office, I think Garden City's headed down that. Those two actually already implemented it. We've went over into some site visits to see how it's helped their operations. And they're telling us that it is a tremendous asset to be able to get that information in real time and get it out to the people who need it, whether it be a detective, whether it be an intel analyst, or even our patrol officers. Nampa and Canyon County are also in the process of onboarding that software. And the best part about it is through an MOU, we can share information that we don't normally share now. So how the information sharing happens currently is a phone call to them to try to figure out, hey, do you have any information on this? Their analyst does the work on that. Through a mutual agreement, we can agree on what we will or won't share with each other and when we will share it. And then we can have that at our fingertips real time. The draft one, we've been testing it for quite some time. It's been a huge asset for us. To be honest with you, when we first launched it, I thought we would see the most benefit in patrol. We've actually seen more benefit with it in CID and detectives. Their interviews are lengthier. And so they're a lot more complex, take a lot more time to sort through. So the value in personnel savings and hours worked has been maximized in detectives, although we use it quite frequently in patrol, but those reports are relatively small. We've seen an average of about 27.86 minutes saved per report. That number is important to us because in the PAM model, how long it takes to do the administrative part of our job also drives how many officers we need on the street. And so the more efficient we can be at the administrative work, the quicker we can get our guys and gals back out on the street. And so that number plugged into PAM, I'll show you at the end what it did for us. But so far we've saved roughly 7,000 hours just in that single component of the technology that we're looking at implementing is the draft one. At the bottom, the Axon Draft Audio Transcription Analyst was used to assist in the preparation of this report. That is on all and any documents that we use draft one to start. So if our officers initiate a AI draft of their report, that verbiage is on the bottom of that report to be transparent with whoever reads it, that the initial draft of that came from AI. We require human verification. The software requires human verification. That's one thing that's really nice about Axon. That is a very critical part of how they do business. They quote, use AI to extend human capability while preserving human decision-making, right? We want to make sure that the human decision-maker is still making the decisions, but this is just giving you a head start, if you will, to get that document completed. It's been a huge benefit for us so far. Drone first responder was kind of the title of this conversation, and we're going to talk about drones as first responders. We've been using drones for quite some time. We have 12 certified pilots currently. We have 2 patrol vehicles that are equipped to be able to fly those drones out of. They respond to a call for service and deploy their drone. When we fly a drone currently, this is an important takeaway, is we're currently required to have a pilot and an observer who has eyes onto the drone when it's flying. So we take 2 officers out of the field to fly a drone currently. There are times when, depending on where they're located, where they launch the drone, may not be a complete secure scene. And so sometimes we'll have a 3rd officer there to ensure that while these guys are occupied with their screens and watching the drone, that somebody doesn't walk up on them or something like that. Last year, we had 505 law enforcement flights, which was pretty impressive. Here's kind of an overall view. So the drone Axon allows us to track all of our drone flights, where they're at. We know why we fly them. We know it's a training mission. We know whether it's on a certain type of call for service. So if anybody ever asks, hey, why was this drone here? I can give you the why. I can tell you this is why it was there. This won't change with drone first responder. Drone first responder really is we're going to put a pilot in a building and we're going to send the drone first, not last, not second, not third. So when the drone goes first, it can provide a lot of information back to those responding officers in regards to how many we should send, who we should send. We've had conversations with fire. We think that fire is a great opportunity for us to utilize this technology. A good example would be a structure fire. I get a drone there within 2 minutes, providing real-time video feed to the battalion chief or the captains on the apparatus, and they can start making some real-world decisions in regards to what they're responding to. It's no different for us. We're responding to an in-progress call. An overwatch on that call within a couple of minutes, beating our response time, provides us valuable information in regards to, do we need to slow this down? What resources do we need to do? We will have a better preparation in responding to that call, and the outcome will be better almost every time by us having eyes on ahead of us getting there, if that makes sense. So I kind of knew this was coming, but I didn't think it was going to come when it did. So on December 22nd, the FCC prohibited the purchase of drones and drone critical components from any country other than the United States. A lot of that has to do with the soccer tournament that's coming here this next year. That was kind of what led into the push to get that done a little bit faster. All of our drones and all of the critical components are not made in the United States currently. So we can still fly them as they are today, but if they break or we need to buy another one, we cannot do that. Part of this program, Skydio, and who is the actual US manufacturer of the drones, has been offering some buyback credits to buy our drones that aren't made in the United States so that we can deploy their drones. In this proposal that we're putting together, our drones currently are handled like any other piece of equipment. They end up on the CFP, the replacement from the capital budget. What we're proposing is moving that into our Axon contract, where then Axon covers the warranty and the replacement of that equipment, and the replacement of it all is within the contract, just like our cameras currently are, just like the ones in our cars, just like our tasers. When the newer, better technology comes out, we get the newer, better stuff. And so it's kind of a win-win for us, and it gets us into the US manufactured drones. The other thing that Lieutenant Ludwig is working on and is getting a waiver. So the technology that we're implementing through the FAA will allow us to fly those drones completely autonomous. So we can fly them without seeing them. We can fly them from this room. We can fly them from the police department. All their collision avoidance equipment is top notch. They have parachutes on them in case they crash. I don't think they've had 2 parachute deployments in the history of the company, so we're not looking to have that occur here. But fixed DFR drone coverage. First locations we looked at that made the most sense to us was fire departments and police departments. They're usually strategically located within our city. So the first locations that we identified as one's our police department, and the other 2 are both fire departments, Fire Station 2 and Fire Station 3. Goal of is trying to cover as much of our city as we can to get within a 2-minute response. So our goal being, I want to have a drone on scene within 2 minutes most places. And so there's a little bit of overlap. For us, that overlap really is centered around most of our calls for service. So our high percentage of our calls for service are kind of in the center of those 3 rings, if you will. But we had originally looked at, is there ways to do 2 off one location? But after we went and did some site visits, we went to Redmond, Washington, Lakewood, Colorado, and also Caldwell Police has recently launched a drone first responder program just in the last few weeks. So our takeaway from that was the more locations you have, the better overlap you have, and the more space you can get to, the better the program would be. This is a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about. This overwatch oftentimes can free up officers to complete additional tasks. We believe public safety and officer safety is enhanced with drones during foot pursuits and vehicle pursuits. If there's a way we can get overwatch on either 2 of those operations, we can slow things down, get people in the right places, not have officers end up in ambush situations. If we're not chasing a car and we can follow it with a drone and not have to chase it with our vehicles, that's a win-win for both the community and us as well. Average response to low priority calls is 12 minutes. So the chief talked about our 4-minute response. Those are priority 3 calls. A priority 1 call is a low priority call. We believe a DFR can be on scene of about 12,000 of our calls annually within 90 seconds, and nearly all of our calls within 2 minutes or less. What calls are we going to send drones on? Anything that makes sense, right? All of the calls are on the table, whether it be an abandoned vehicle, whether it be a traffic hazard, A traffic hazard, we send an officer, has to drive time, commute time through our community to get to it. If I can send a drone there in 90 seconds and realize that vehicle is parked in the parking lot, I don't have to send the officer. I can cancel him immediately. So we think there's a huge percentage of those calls that we can clear without having officers actually arrive on scene. We believe the DFR drones can either handle or have primary impact on 15 to 20% of our calls. As we examine data from the other agencies, some of those agencies are reporting 30 and 40% calls. We're pretty conservative. We don't think it's that high for us. At the end of the day, fast response time, reduce risk to officers. You can also use it for search and rescue operations. It's got thermal capabilities. Our drones respond a lot during the day for lost kids and things like that, and utilize their thermal capability during the day. A lot of people think thermal's for night, but it's very, very effective during the day, especially when you're searching large areas, open spaces, fields, that type of area. So again, we'll utilize it the same way we're currently using it today. So PAM model, let's talk about, let's get into the weeds a little bit about that. So the 30-minute reduction in report writing time, draft one, the single component of this package, we believe will drop our PAM number by 2 by itself, just the report writing element of that. I actually think we're being incredibly conservative on that. Just yesterday, we had guys in our hiring Officer Professional Standards using that tool to make their job better in the hiring process, and then IA, something we hadn't really thought about utilizing before, and it saved them hours of time at their computer typing. The response and the calls, the total reduction in total hours spent on calls per year, we think we can bring that PAM number down to 81.1. That's the DFR. Those are the two products that we're talking about primarily that I believe will put our PAM number to 81 by itself, just those two functions. We can go through the whole list of the AI components that are going to make our jobs more efficient, more effective, and safer. But the one-to-one comparison with bodies is really lies in draft one and the drone first responder. Not cheap, right? Nothing's cheap in this world anymore. So the Axon AI bundle, which would include drone as first responder, that's 3 fixed drones, 2 mobile drones. We will still have 2 mobile drones that we can deploy like we deployed today. They will still be in those vehicles. We can also hand off our drone flight from one person to the other. If there's an officer on scene that's a pilot and wants to take over the flight of the drone, they can. They can then land the drone there and recharge the batteries and send it back up just like they normally would. But they just have the advantage of it beating them to the call. Draft one, a body-worn camera translation, which is the language. Brief one. I didn't include in there also, it's called a brief one that was also the policy one as well. ALPR cameras, this would bring our ALPR infrastructure into Axon. Again, it's under their program, it's warranted by them. All of the data is maintained within their Fusus platform, our evidence.com. We're not paying somewhere else for any type of storage of information. It's a single pane of glass that the officers can go to get their information. So we feel it's valuable to bring that tool all into one product. We've also had some performance issues with Recore that we think we're overcoming based off their equipment, and the tests so far have turned out that product is far superior to what we've currently been using. Peregrine is a $44,000 initial cost. These costs are ongoing subscriptions, right? It's a bundle package for Axon. That's how they bundle everything in there. And as we continue to use that product, as their product improves, as they add new things in the AI world, we still get that product as well. So once we're in, we have that product. And as they make changes and improvements to it, we get the benefit of that as well. So to fund this, our ask is going to be to take 4 of our patrol officer positions, 4 of the 17 that we've had open for I don't know how long. I don't remember the last time we were fully staffed since I've been here. I don't think we ever have, maybe more than 6 months. Utilize that funding in addition to our Analytical Services Manager. That position's been open 2 years. We've done some stuff inside the department to kind of move those personnel around a little bit, change the way they do business, the way they think about how they're doing business. The Peregrine product is really a supplement to the work that they do. Our analytical manager before spent a lot of time on the phone with our IT department to try to build a lot of the reports and query the data that she was needing to do her job. Peregrine will eliminate that need. So we'll take some load off of IT as well. So this is the thought process we have in regards to, we think this is going to be incredibly beneficial to our personnel, make us way more efficient, effective at what we do, and utilize technology instead of people to do that. So I know it's a lot of information. Sorry about the video not working. I can send that to you guys too, so you can watch it. It's pretty good video to show their product from start to finish. I didn't do it justice for sure. I have Lieutenant Kyle Ludwig's here and Lieutenant Brandon Frazier. Brandon Frazier handles most of our Axon contract work and all of our equipment with Axon. And Kyle manages all of our drone type stuff. So there's a lot of information in hopefully a short period of time. Any questions that I can answer for you guys, or have one of my fellow teammates help you out?
Thank you, Captain Council. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Will Roberts.
a comment and a question, if I may. First of all, just great presentation. I've had the privilege of being involved a little bit as we've gone along, but to have it all put in one place was great. So thank you. And when we saw the demonstrations, we also saw the little drones. Are they still part of the package, or are we going to just the big ones? What's?
Mayor, Councilwoman Little Roberts. Currently in this package, we still have our little drones that we fly internal, which Skydio has those as well. This package only has the current package has 3 drones that we'll put on locations, and then 2 drones that are for our vehicles. Are not the inside drones yet. We haven't went down that road yet. Great tool. We see great value in them. We have some smaller drones right now that are still operational that we can utilize for that function. Obviously, won't be able to use them forever because they're not made here, but Skydio does have a product that does that work for us as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Willock.
just an observation. First off, thanks. You helped set up a opportunity for me to go out with one of the officers a couple weeks ago. And as you were talking, I was thinking about just one of the calls we were on. It was a suicidal subject. We were sent there along with 4 other officers. All we had was a description of the subject and that she was headed east from the location. And we were there within 4 minutes, less. And we had 5 officers searching in a grid for 20 minutes and we couldn't find her. And I just think a drone being there in less than 90 seconds would have had eyes on her and they would have found her a lot sooner. So I just see the value in this, from saving officers time, from saving lives. And I think that's the mission of this company, is to save officers, to save the public and not lose any lives and improve the work that you're able to do. So thanks for walking us through this individually and for the presentation tonight. And for me, being out in the field to be able to see how it really can be more effective and helpful to our officers out on the street. So thanks, Captain.
Thank you. That's a great example of the use of the drones. That 2 or 3 minutes it takes to get the officer there, the person can go great distances. And so the quicker we can be on site to identify where they're at and keep track of them is invaluable for sure. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Just a quick question. We talked a little bit about it before and you kind of talked about it some tonight, but when it comes to the kind of the ownership of the drones, this is a subscription model. So we're not buying the drones themselves as much as it's part of the subscription. And also kind of wondering, when repair is needed or a drone is broken, that's just going to be quickly replaced, automatically replaced? I'm trying to get a sense of like owning the capital infrastructure
Yeah,
versus
great,
renting the capital.
great question. On behalf of, I can speak on the products we've had with Axon prior. It's been a very seamless process to get our equipment replaced very quickly and get us back up and running. So Kyle can probably give you a little more insight into the drones. He knows more about that than I do.
Council, Mayor, pleasure to be here. Councilman Taylor. In response to that, so there's a built-in warranty and care package that comes with the Skydio program. That includes basic replacements like for props and things of that nature. Their factory is located in San Mateo. Oh, actually, it's in headquarters is San Mateo. Their factory is located in Richmond, I believe, in the Bay Area there. And they will take back anything that they do to replace that and send that back immediately. Additionally, in this package, there is a replacement guarantee. So as upgraded technology comes available, I want to say it's year 4 in, we get all new equipment as part of that, as well as the care package. So if we do have a crash, we do have something in nature, something's not right, they will fix that. It's all part of that care package.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
Thank you. First of all, I've been a real fan of this idea of just the concept. It seems inevitable that with pressure around our operating costs and the recruiting challenges that we have to leverage technology. But, a question I had was, will these drones be able to interact with the public? So like, if there's like a microphone, if they're going to be interacting. And the second part to my question, before you go there, you'll answer that one, but have you started thinking about, if this were to be approved, what is the communication plan with the public? And to start sort of educating the public about, you may see drones, please don't shoot them. Like there was a big issue, you will recall, on the East Coast, they had drones everywhere and people were trying to shoot the drones. Like, God forbid, we don't want that happening. So just generally, what kind of interaction will the drone itself be able to have? And then have you started thinking about communication?
Want the communication question first?
Councilwoman Strader, Mayor. Yeah, we have a plan to put out social media things, put out some news releases as well. I think the thing you'll find with these drones is the first responder, most people aren't even going to know they're there. They're going to respond, assess the situation, especially when we look at like these priority 1 calls, which Captain Leslie talked about, that we think we can clear without even making contact with a lot of people. They're going to go assess it and say, you don't need to send an officer to the scene because what was reported isn't actually there. And the people that we've talked to in other agencies that are already using this, they just haven't had those issues. When we have a call that's a larger call, certainly we try to put out messaging through dispatch that we're on the scene. These are the things that are occurring. But our big push is going to be, how do we put that out through local media?
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
That's helpful. And I don't think we have to have all the answers to everything at this point. I think that's something that we could flush that out. If you don't mind going back to the first part of my question, which is just like, how can the drone itself interact with the public? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yes, Councilwoman Strader. So there's a gimbal device that controls the camera, which obviously is for video as well as thermal imaging. There's additional attachments you can make on that. That's basically our choice of how we want to set that up. They have spotlight attachments. They have speaker attachments so that you can communicate through the drone to the public. The FAA requirements when you get your beyond visual line of sight waiver requires you to have a rescue system. So there will be a parachute attachment that will take up one of those gimbal positions. So there'll be a balance to figure out what we feel is the best necessity for the drone, whether that's the speaker or the spotlight or another attachment. But those decisions have not yet been made. But the capability is there for communication purposes.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
I just have one more. Besides that, the drones are great. Like they're super cool. Like the collision avoidance stuff is amazing. I mean, it's all incredible. What are the key like performance metrics or success metrics that you're going to measure after you implement your drone program that's going to tell you if it's accomplishing what you wanted? Like, what are the things you're going to be looking at to kind of evaluate? Is this working the way we thought? Is this the direction we want to keep going? I'm just curious about that.
Great question, Councilman Strader. So all the work we do is statistic based, right? We keep track of how many calls we respond to, how fast we get there. I can break down every officer calls for service throughout the year. Like we did in the CSO program, we started to see that workload through our dashboards and our statistics. This work is shifting from here to here. And so this will be very easy for us to see. So the drone's going to have its own call sign. So when it goes out, it's just like an officer call sign. So I'll have a call history for that piece of that responding unit, if you will. I guess it's a drone, but I'll know how many calls for service that drone has responded to, and I'll be able to very easily correlate. We've removed this 10, 15, 20% of our priority one patrol calls to this asset. And so I think that number is going to be really easy for us to extract in the way we already obtain data and monitor our officers' performance, because we'll have its own performance matrix, if that makes sense.
Mr. Mayor?
I think the chief may have also wanted to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. One of the metrics we use, right, is how long we have officers on scene. So this is a easy way to measure when did the drone get on scene and when were they cleared, or how many officers responded to this call. So we have an idea when we go through our CAD data about how many officers respond to each type of call type, and on average, how long they spend on those calls. For instance, domestic violence for officers throughout this valley, I believe the time spent on a domestic violence call on scene, not writing reports, is over 3 hours. And the average is 4 officers on scene at a time. So we can measure that on our drones as well, on those types of, whatever type of call they go to. I dispatched myself to a call the other day for a traffic hazard, and one of our sergeants canceled me, and they had to drive the same distance across town to see this traffic hazard. All it was a flat box in the road. It wasn't a hazard. We can dispatch a drone to something like that rather than tying up officers and immediately see there's no traffic hazard, clear the drone and go back. So I think the metrics will be fairly easy to measure.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Schrader.
I think it's great. I would love to hear what the next steps are, and just would ask, I guess maybe one request is just that you would report back how it's going.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
once we get it rolling, yeah, assuming everyone's in support, but it just feels like a really logical thing for us to do.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
so I'm going to take a little different take on this. Captain Leslie and Lieutenant Ludwig and command staff, you've done a great job. But I can't help but go back and think how nice this would have been to have 15, 20 years ago, and how many different calls we dealt with. For example, real world examples at a school where if we'd have had a drone in a couple of minutes there and found out that the threat was sitting in a car in the parking lot, instead of us putting 45 to 50 officers from across the valley in that parking lot, building teams and searching every classroom one at a time, because that's how we clear the building. This drone would have been there ahead of time, would have been able to give real-time data back and saved all of that. And that's just one example. We've had so many calls over the years where we've had to set up perimeters, inner perimeters, outer perimeters, only to find out, because of how long it took us to get there, we didn't have the person inside that perimeter like we thought we did. We're having drones on scene that quickly will let us know exactly what we're dealing with. It boggles my mind. I think you're way conservative on the amount of time this is going to save our officers responding, especially for those calls on Eagle Road at rush hour, where we have a possible accident and we send 1 or 2 units because it's Eagle Road, and we get there and there's nothing there. And we've spent all that time tying up units for something that's not even in traffic because they exchanged information and drove away. But our calling party to dispatch only can give us so much information. There's 150 scenarios every single day that this drone would make more efficient. But probably my most impressive part of this is draft one. You tell me we can get almost 30 minutes off a report savings. That means we can get those guys back in the car and back on the street that much quicker. That's phenomenal. That's a tremendous savings to our officers on the street and how much time we can have them still out in the cars and protecting and doing more and more work and less time sitting in an office working on reports. I would love to pick this apart and tell you some negatives, but I haven't seen one. I've been to every demonstration they've had. I've watched them intentionally try to crash a drone, and they couldn't. Its accident avoidance was mind-boggling. The history of Axon in our department has been spectacular. We have body cameras now that are way better than the first body-worn cameras we had. The tasers we have now are much better than the first ones we had. The company has stood behind their goal of making police departments across this country better. And I wanted to speak last because I'm a huge fan of this. I think this is where technology is driving law enforcement, so we can get in a position where we don't have to just put officers at risk in situations because we don't know what they're walking into, but we actually have a drone with eyes in the sky watching. So I appreciate this presentation. I'm obviously very much for this, and I look forward to seeing this come through as a budget amendment for this next year.
Oh, and unfortunately, you don't get to be last. But I appreciate your sentiments nonetheless. And I'll add my 2 cents. I want to compliment the team. And I want to compliment the chief for living within the parameters which we kind of set out. But the very first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to challenge those parameters because I live in South Meridian and we have all these brand new roundabouts, which are causing all these accidents. Yet we only went with 3 drones and not a 4th one to even get to the further south part of our. So my first question, what would be the cost increase to go to a 4th deployable drone? Do we?
Yes, well, there's the care package and everything else that's to it. I would have to get back to you on the specific numbers. The numbers that we were given were for the 3 and then the 3 separate. There's additional cost for setting it up at the 3 individual sites versus all 3 drones being deployed to one location as well. So I would have to parse out those numbers for you, Mayor. But I would guess it's probably somewhere. I believe the number that sticks in my mind is about $70,000 for the dock setup as well as the drone.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
I won't quote you on it, but and maybe that's something you guys can follow up and then provide a little bit more detail. Maybe it's a separate consideration in the next budget year, since it is not, part of that. My goals of trying to keep it essentially budget neutral from where we currently are to implement this program in this year. Secondarily, I also think that the report writing software and over the next 3 to 5 years, it's just going to get better. Now, we think it's the best it's ever, I imagine everything's going to get better. It's going to be more time savings. I don't want to say cost savings, more time savings over time. I think that's what we're going to see with all these technologies along the way, that it's going to help. And that, I'm not going to say it's going to reduce future officers that we need, but it could, because we just don't know how good the software is going to get over the next several years. So, I'm a big fan. I'm a big supporter of this. The last question I want to ask is really when it comes down to flying the drones in the context of, what is allowed and not allowed, but does it need to be a uniformed officer in the drones, or is this something that will eventually be a civilian would be able to do?
I can answer that. Yeah, eventually it could be a civilian. Yep, absolutely.
So even if we decide we need to have more, it's a lower cost of training of the whole gamut to have someone doing this. Maybe retired law enforcement is what you want, but it could be something. Okay. All right.
I remember right, the person that set up all of Walnut Grove's drone as a first responder program was a civilian employee actually that developed that whole program. So, and I do just want to give a plug. This is the nerdy chief thing in me. The part that I like that really excites me is the translation portion of this, because having been a road cop and having to go and translate for various people because you're the only one that speaks that language can get a little onerous. And now you're tying up two officers instead of just one. And I think the other thing that it does is it helps our officers be able to build better community relations with a lot of our diverse population in the city that otherwise we wouldn't. I mean, officers would avoid because they can't communicate with them. And I think it could be a game changer for us for sure.
We've gone through my comments, questions. So next steps.
We're ready to start moving forward. For us, we're going to need a budget amendment, obviously, to fund the project. We've already done a preliminary siting of the locations and sites. We're currently using draft one. We have some of the infrastructure in-house that we can utilize to put this up and running. So for us, we're ready to start that process and move forward. And I might even go to the fire department and get enough money for Station 7 to have a drone. You never know. They might be able to buy one up there. It'd be a great location for one. That's what we need from you is I mean, we have to come back, obviously, with a budget amendment to move these funds to this project. And we're ready to get going on this. We think it's a very exciting moment for us in law enforcement. And it's game changer for us, honestly. I've been doing this for 30 years, and there's nothing that's come along that has taken us this way.
Just is finance requiring an amendment compared to just a GL transfer?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to ask them this week. But one thing, there is a bit of a time crunch because the Skydio buyback program, they've extended it for us to the end of January. It was supposed to be done in December, so we would need it by the end of January.
I guess, council, do you want them to come back with the budget amendment, even if it's not necessary to have further official sign off, or if finance allows a GL transfer with the liaison and myself? Are you okay with that approach?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
I think this is a good hygiene thing personally. Like, I just think it shouldn't be too horrible to put a budget amendment together. We could be seeing it by like next week, hopefully.
Yep.
That's just my opinion. It's big enough that I wouldn't want to see GL transfers like that happen without a formal budget amendment. That's just me.
Okay, then we'll bring it back next week with the budget amendment.
We'll take care of it.
We'll do it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And hopefully the community enjoyed that presentation. I know it was a little later than we normally get to our public hearings, but appreciate you being here and sitting through that. So with that, we'll move on to item 12. This is a public hearing that was continued, as being requested a continuance. Is there any further comments, or do I have a motion to continue?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the applicant is requesting continuance to February 24th in order to allow additional time for the Stratford to Touchmark transportation study to be completed. We do expect to receive the final draft next Tuesday. We do have a draft of the study, and I have shared that with the applicant. And staff is presenting the findings from that study to City Council on January 27th.
Okay.
Does the mayor and council have any additional questions?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
There's no further comments. I'd like to move that we continue latitude 43 H 2024-0059 to February 24th, 2026.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to continue item 12. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The item's continued. Okay. Next up is item 13, which is public hearing for 3780 Overland, which is H 2024-0038. We will open this public hearing with staff comments.
Mayors, members of the council, good evening. Happy New Year. Good to see you all. Next item on the agenda is the annexation for 3780 East Overland Road. So the applicant is requesting annexation of 0.91 acres of land with the R2 zoning district. So the existing zoning is R1 in Ada County, and they are and the flume designation is mixed use regional. R2 would typically not be a designation we would allow for in the mixed use regional. However, the applicant did enter into an agreement for extension of domestic water and sewer services outside of Meridian city limits due to their failing well. This agreement allowed the property to hook up to city water and sewer services with the disconnection of their private well and septic system. And a provision of this agreement was to require the property owner to annex into the city of Meridian. So that is why they are requesting annexation. We did have a property just 2 doors down actually do this last 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. So it's because their well is failing and they are actually hooked up to city services. They did apply for that permit and it is already hooked up. So they do have water and sewer to that property. So they're just finalizing the agreement by annexing into the city. Another thing to note is that they do currently run an alteration business out of this property. And to continue this business, once annexed, the applicant is required to comply with the home occupation as an accessory use standards, which they will apply for that permit once the DA is recorded and the ordinance is recorded for that annexation. So at a further date, this DA will be amended and the property, once redevelopment does happen in that area, it will require a new zoning and the development agreement to be amended. And I will stand for any questions you guys have.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant here?
Mr. Mayor, the applicant's online.
Okay,
Mr. Madrigal, you're able to talk.
There we go. I think, can you hear me now?
yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. As Mr. Napoli, forgive me if I mispronounced that, summarized, I was able to read the last meeting's minutes. He summarized the situation really well, as he did again today. We understand that right now it is a residence with a home business. Going into the future, at this point, there is no intent or no plans to develop or redevelop. But should that happen in the future, we know that we'd need to go through this zoning process again. Right now, the biggest concern was just the property had a failing well that needed to get addressed.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Clerk, did anyone sign up to provide testimony on this item?
Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up.
If there's anybody that would like to provide testimony on this item, you can either come forward now or use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. Seeing no one coming forward, would the applicant like to make any final comments or do you waive any final comments?
Not at the moment. Thank you, though.
Okay. Applicant waives. Council, what's your desire?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
seeing no other comments, I'd move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, on favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
for considering all staff applicant public testimony, I would move to approve file number H 2025-0038 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 13th, 2026.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item H 2025-0038. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taylor?
Aye.
Strader? Whitlock?
Aye.
Little Roberts?
Aye.
Overton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to. With that, we'll move on to item 14, which is a public hearing continued from December 9th, 2025 for Cherry Blossom East subdivision H 2025-0030. We will continue this public hearing with staff comments.
Members of the council. I got you, Dean. Thanks. This project was continued from the December 9th hearing in order for the applicant and the two neighbors to the south to work on a cross-access easement agreement that would provide access for emergency vehicles and trash service to the properties to the south and allow cost sharing for the driveway maintenance. Since the last hearing, 3 letters of testimony have been received, one from Margie and Justin Williams and Todd and Christy Hansen, requesting continuance of the project to a later hearing date of at least 30 days out in order to allow additional time to finalize the easement agreement. And then 2 subsequent letters from Margie Williams. You should have those in your packet or in the public record. The applicant is here to present tonight.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward?
John Brecken, Brecken Land Design, 6661 North Glenwood Street. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm not sure if I should, I've brought the same presentation I did last time. I can go through that again, or we can just pick up where we left off. The thing we were tasked to address was a cross-access agreement with the shared driveway. And we have made some progress with that. All parties are acceptable to a cross-access agreement and potentially a maintenance agreement. It's currently in draft form or being worked on by the attorney. And then we anticipate having some back and forth on that to get everybody content with the verbiage. That's really where we're at. I stand for questions.
Council, questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
John, so you made progress, but there's not really an agreement yet. You've just agreed on it and things are moving along, but you haven't hit the end of the road in terms of finding the resolution. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Taylor, yeah, that's correct. So it's, I've talked to everybody. There's been a verbal confirmation that they would be willing to work together to come up with an acceptable cross-access agreement. And so nothing is complete at this time. So we're working on a draft that can then be reviewed by all the neighbors and expect, I mean, based on the conversations, it was very positive. And so I expect that we can at least, the way I explained it to everybody was that there's a couple different pieces to this. There's the cross-access agreement, just to allow everybody to cross the property line and not have an issue with trespass. Looking further down the road into the future, the second piece would be to come up with some kind of a maintenance agreement. At some point, it will need to be maintained, fixed, asphalt replaced or concrete replaced, that sort of thing. And so it would be good if we could go ahead and have something in place for that. And then I did get some correspondence from the neighbors. They would like to see if they could maybe work together to have, their driveway replaced or upgraded as part of this. And so that piece, I'm not sure if we're really, if that's going to work out exactly, but I've really kind of presented that to everybody in that fashion. So we've kind of got this tiered approach, I'd say, with the cross access being number one.
So John, are you wanting to continue this for 30 days to?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't really want to continue it again, but I can understand if that would be council's preference to go ahead and get this finalized. That's understandable.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
maybe this question is better addressed to Bill. Do we as the council need this agreement between neighbors to approve this?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Little Roberts. No, I mean, you don't need it. I mean, it definitely was a contingent
a point of contention last time and concern just because of the difficulty of the way this property lays out and these adjacent easements. It is not required, but certainly that was the council's desire, was to get this ironed out, you know, obviously from our standpoint, from legal, it would be nice to have that finalized so that that isn't an issue going forward, and then we'd have to come back again if it isn't. But it's certainly within your prerogative either way.
Follow-up comment, Mr. Mayor. I think
Hmm.
I, for one, was under the impression that we allowed more than enough time to get this done. So I was really surprised to hear that it wasn't completed. And so I don't know that another 30 days, I mean, I thought we had a deadline of today, so I don't know what adding 30 days doesn't seem like a bigger stick to get it done. So I would be in favor of going ahead, but if the rest of the council would prefer to say 30 days and at that point we make a decision if it's not done, I'd be good with that too.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
question, we have not closed the public hearing on this.
No, we
yet,
have
right?
not.
I'd be curious. I know we have some neighbors here. I'd be curious to hear some of their thoughts if they're here to share that, which I'm assuming they are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, you want to sign up on this item?
Mr. Mayor, no one signed up in advance.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to come forward and provide comments to this, we'd love to hear you. Say your name and address for the record, please. Be recognized for 3 minutes.
Justin Williams, 1251 Northwest 4th Street. So I live right across the street from where they're putting these houses. The biggest contingency or the problem is that they have never even tried to work with us on making the road wider. Everything is take versus give or help. So the neighborhood, basically there's going to be 2 separate driveways unless we work together. So we ask like, hey, can you replace our driveway? Hey, can you help with us? Because we're giving up a bunch of our property. So now we're going to have 3 houses adjacent to our 2 houses. There's no parking. There's nowhere for the people to turn, like there's a turnaround. One of the houses, there's not even a place to back up. So they're going to be backing up onto our property constantly. So we sent some drawings out to them, which of course they waited until the last minute to get them. I think we got them to them Thursday or Friday, and then we're here now on Tuesday. So it's basically like pushing back and pushing back and pushing back. They don't call and come in and talk to us or say, hey, what about this drawing or this drawing? It's more like, what can we take from you? They're basically taking the neighbor's driveway. He won't have anywhere to park. And beyond that, the road isn't even technically wide enough without them moving the telephone poles. So if anybody's driving back and forth, they're going to be driving on our property. That's why we wanted like the cross action easement and the concrete to be replaced. So if you had time to drive to our neighborhood and see where they're putting it in and kind of visualize our road or our driveway versus the other driveway, I think you'd go, this doesn't really make sense to put 3 houses in there.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, Justin, I have a quick question. You said they've taken your property. You're talking about just the property that you've had.
No, like they want to take up part of our driveway. They want to use part of our driveway as like a cross access so they can back out and turn around. So that property has never been ours, and we've used it, and trash trucks have backed in there to get our trash. But they come in and say, hey, can we get 8 feet or 10 feet from you? But they don't say, hey, we'll do anything for you, like fixing the road or paying any money or anything.
Mr. Mayor, quick follow-up.
Councilman Taylor.
My memory could be inaccurate. I'm recalling though in the discussion that without a cross-access agreement in place, your current driveway is not wide enough for trash, for fire. And so that was one of the reasons why we strongly wanted a cross-access agreement to be put in place so that services like that could get back to your home.
Correct.
The emergency responders could get back to your home. I'm curious as to, you still said they're taking some of our property.
They want to use part of our property as the road. So they want to use that instead of going into the neighbor's yard. So there's a telephone pole and a telephone pole, and it's only 18 feet wide. So technically, they need part of our property to make it wide enough to be legal.
So maybe going back to the same question, are you asking for them to continue for 30 days to work out?
I was hoping to have a drawing from them and an idea of what they would help us out with before this meeting, and we did not receive anything.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask the quill? When,
Yes, Taylor.
are you saying, sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are you talking about their willingness to help redo your part of the driveway? Because yours is concrete.
Correct.
And they're going to be asphalt.
Correct.
Because I don't recall this from the last hearing, any discussion about redoing the driveway because there was no agreement to have a cross access.
Correct. So now
You're asking, hold on, you're asking for clarification from them to rebuild your driveway. But and that sounds like what's part of the third sort of tiered approach that John had just mentioned. That was never my recollection of any discussion last time about that they would do that because you haven't agreed to work or talk together.
Correct.
So
in between the time we talked, I sent a drawing in, Todd sent a drawing in, and we kind of said, hey, what about doing this to where the road funnels in, it looks better? The problem is our concrete is going to get cracked because it's old. So anybody that backs on our driveway, any trash truck, delivery truck, whatever, it's going to crack it. So in the future, we're going to have to replace it. So being proactive and saying, if we bend on this side and help you, will you redo this road for us? And put in kind of a berm to where it matches. Again, if you would drive by the driveway, when you see it, it's not going to make a lot of sense if we don't work together.
Council, any additional questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that'd like to provide testimony this side? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Christy Hansen. I live at 1247 West 4th Street in Meridian, across from this new subdivision going to be. I have a couple drawings, but I don't know. Can I bring them to you? Because I didn't enter. Mr. Mayor, these are the drawings that we provided to John Brecken. That's his name. And he reached out to us, but we had no way of reaching out to him, or I guess we didn't know how to reach out to him. When he did reach out to us, then we sent him those drawings, but he didn't reach out to us till last Friday. So I don't know what was going on when we were supposed to be working together. We kept waiting for a phone call or an email or something to work that out, and we never heard from him. So we're kind of that's one of the reasons we want the continuance, is because like he said, you guys will agree to it. They can just keep going forward, and it's in his hands with his attorney. And if we could get a continuance, then we'd have time to be able to look at it and have our chance to maybe have our attorney look at it too. But he didn't even respond when he got it, like, thank you, I got it. So I think that's where we're kind of stuck in. And when you talk about the councilman, when you talk about the sharing the road, that is what that drawing is about, is trying to, they're going to pave that, I'm assuming, with asphalt, because that can support heavy trucks and concrete can't. So our give was we would give 5 feet of our driveway and they'd have to tear it out anyway and put in asphalt to match. Then it would be cohesive with 6 houses there and help that. So that was kind of our, let's see what he's showing you here.
So
I don't even see, oh, okay, so there's our hands. So the concrete is our private driveway. And our drawing that we'd actually submitted, we wanted to have them see if they would berm like 5 feet or landscape it to make our look better. And then we'd give them 5 feet, thank you. We'd give them 5 feet to widen their road and then just make that all be asphalt up to Justin's property. He's right, when that house right there, if the garage is facing that way, I'm not sure, they would be having to back out right onto his private drive right there too. So I think that's where he's saying he's not getting any allowance or any, and maybe he'll agree to this, but he didn't respond. So we're kind of in a thing going, well, we're trying to work it out, but we don't know where to go from here.
So, Councilwoman Scherer.
Mr. Mayor, what is the justification for you requiring a landscaping berm out of the applicant? I'm not understanding functionally why that specific item is needed.
Well, because we're giving them, in our opinion, we're giving JO or the easement to 5 feet of our property to make that wider so he doesn't have to cut so much into his own land and to make it more legal for, and I'm not sure I'm the right person to talk about that, to make it more legal for emergency vehicles and utility vehicles. But in doing that, that would leave this 5 feet of concrete. I guess that could be a sidewalk, but I was thinking it'd be more to keep it, to just tear it all out. And if you put some sort of a landscape right there, it would segregate our home from the asphalt that's being done. Where right now we're right on the concrete because that's our property. And I'm not saying that'd be part of the agreement. They might say, no, we don't want to do the berm, give and take here, we'll do the asphalt. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Sonia, do you mind doing a street view on the display? I think it gives us a better sense of what the driveway looks like.
That's cool. So you can see the hard line there is our concrete, and then that's dirt. And back in the years, we'd have to bring in gravel to try to keep that level so that we didn't have our concrete break off. So we were graveling that other person's or the developer's lot. We haven't done it for a while, but we're just asking to come in 5 feet on our concrete and make that be asphalt to match the whole asphalt they're going to have to do up to that fence line, I believe.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
So again, if I'm recalling correctly from last time, there was a lot of discussion about how it was like 11 or 12 feet. Yours were in, I remember some of that discussion. What you're suggesting, instead of looking at the width of both driveways combined, you want to give 5 feet of your driveway for one driveway and then have them put a berm on sort of the south side of where the driveway is currently, but you want that torn out and a berm put in. That's what your drawing is reflecting.
Yeah, so we're somewhat segregated from that road or whatever. We don't want that half the concrete to stay there because people are still gonna, then that's more work for us to have to clean up. If we do it this other way, then we can work on also coming up with that. And I'm only speaking for myself, not for my neighbors. But that way we could come up with a shared agreement, like you said, signed agreement of who's going to maintain that asphalt for the 6 homes. To me, that would be more fair.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Or just to ask, what's your feedback so far on the cross-access agreement? It seems like you don't have any concerns with that. It's more going to, I shouldn't not put words in your mouth, but you're open to having the cross-access agreement, probably subject to these physical modifications you're requesting. Let me ask you then, absent him agreeing to these changes, would you be open to a cross-access agreement?
So you're saying we just agreed to let them use our road and there's cross-access coming up and down and we get nothing in return.
Well, then you get cross-access with trash trucks using his roadway or his driveway. So you get something because currently you're using that gravel road, which is not your property, for access. Fire or garbage trucks drive down there, they back up, they turn around on their property. It requires a cross-access agreement in order for trash trucks to go down that road. So I would suggest you are getting a benefit by having that agreement. So what I want to drill down on and what I want to know, sounds like you're willing to agree to some kind of a cross-access agreement if they make these physical changes to the driveway you've put in the paper. If he says no, I'm just gonna put my driveway in, you're not willing to do a cross-access agreement. And again, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's what I'm understanding from what I'm hearing so far.
Mr. Mayor, so actually what I'm trying to say here is that, let's say he just does that, he just asphalts that, right? And we now have access, same as we always had, but it's asphalt. But now we have 3 more homes back there and they're going to be using our driveway. How do we come to an agreement? For one, I don't know that anybody that buys, who's signing the agreement? Is it JO? Is it going to be the 3 people that buy the home? And when they do, they're going to look at our concrete and go, I'm not going to sign an agreement to help maintain that concrete, because I can tell you right now, it's going to break down as soon as they start building in there. The concrete's not going to hold. And no way I can guarantee that they're, I mean, it's just a wild card, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. That's where we're stuck, is now if we grant the cross access, we're saying we agree with these 6 people that they're all going to share in paying for the first thing that's going to break down is that 22-year-old concrete. That's our take. So it's not that we're against it. I just see that it's going to be a bad deal. But
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
I think in our last meeting, I felt like we gave a lot of time to iron this out, but it was also over the holidays, and that's another factor. Like, do you think that was a piece of this as well on the neighbor side, at least? I'm just trying to, I hear you that you feel like it took him a long time to respond. What I'm worried about with a continuance is I feel like where this is going to end up going is this is going to end up being approved at some point. And if you guys can't work it out, what's going to happen is, I think, worse for everybody. You're going to have 2 totally separate driveways. They're not going to function well together. I just think it's setting up, kind of a contentious relationship instead of a relationship where you're unified and you have a plan. What is your request for, on your side, what kind of a continuance would you be asking for? How much time? And now that the holidays are over, if everyone is working in good faith, earnestly together, I personally was thinking like at the most 2 weeks. I'd like to hear your feedback though. Like, what kind of continuance do you feel is necessary from your standpoint as a neighbor?
Mr. Mayor, if John Brecken that has our drawings and he's got it into the attorney's hands, if he can comment that they could have that back within 2 weeks, because I don't know that this is where this is all new to me. I've lived here for 22 years. I don't know what I'm doing here as far as this goes when it comes to planning and zoning and all of that. Never had an attorney in my life, but if we need to get our own attorney, that's fine. But that feels like that's more of a battleground, where if he already has an attorney already looking at it, I feel like we put it in his hands. We came up with the idea, we drew it up, we handed it to him. So if he can say they can have an answer back to talk to us and work with us directly, which has yet to happen, only in a text or whatever, hey, I'll give you a call or give me a call and that kind of thing between my husband and the Williams. So that's my take, is that, yeah, if they 2 weeks is fine with me. I'd love to see this get moving and get it taken care of, but we want to see something in writing as far as how this is gonna look now.
Any additional questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Whitlock.
Hanson, thank you for being here. And we'd all like to see this resolved in a way that everybody wins. And last hearing, one of the conversations was, you've got the concrete there on the south side. They'll come in and asphalt the north side of this road. It won't match up. It won't look good. I'm wondering first about the expense of tearing out the concrete. I'm not a construction guy. I don't know if they can overlay asphalt on the concrete and just have a 18-foot wide road that all looks great. At that point, I think everybody wins. I don't know about a berm being added and those kinds of things, but I'd just encourage you to have those kinds of conversations and say, how can we get to a win-win where it looks good, it services the homes that are there, services the homes that probably will be there in the future, and we get something that everybody didn't get everything they wanted, but pretty close.
Mr. Mayor, I agree. It's a give and take. So yeah, if we can come to that agreement in the next couple of weeks with him, I'd love it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like we have Margie online.
Margie, you should be able to
Yeah.
unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Say your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Marjorie Williams, 1251 Northwest 4th Street. So I guess my statement is why I'm requesting a continuance. I guess because I did submit, my documents, but in addition, the council's being asked to decide this application based on statements made at hearings rather than a complete, consistent written documentation. So there are multiple unresolved assumptions, including the access geometry, maneuverability, fire compliance being addressed outside the application or through future actions or agreements. And then the cross-access is only one example. The broader problem is that required standards are being treated as satisfied without complete documented analysis of the full access route. And those gaps cannot be cured by characterizing them as a benefit to the neighbors. So approval must stand on the application as submitted, not on future arrangements or negotiations. So there's significant safety defects to the application that are being, I guess, not being addressed that I'm very concerned about. And this is bigger than the cross access, which, I am open to an agreement if we are given any paperwork or any drawings from the developer to work with. I don't think it's fair or legally right to have us, the neighbors, submitting documents to the developer. I mean, they should be coming to us with drawings and ideas as to how to work together, as they are the professional designers. And I'm concerned, like the city council too, I guess, is passing this through. And, even in the last meeting, the fire marshal misspoke about the regulations of 6 houses on one driveway. That isn't to Idaho law.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Hi, Marjorie. So we examined the application, the testimony from the fire marshal, quite a bit. There was nothing from the last hearing that suggested that any of the geometry of the application was outside of the bounds of what could be approved, and everything seemed to be in order based on the testimony, at least that I heard, that staff provided, that the fire department provided. I thought that was kind of where I was at.
Can
So my
say one
question,
thing?
and when I'm done.
Okay.
My question for you is, are you, I would just like to know, are you willing to enter into a cross-access agreement, assuming you can get these finer points agreed upon? Because I know it sounds like there's some discussions happening, but are you willing to enter into a cross-access agreement?
Yes, absolutely. And I would like, professional legal counsel on this cross-access agreement because the city has legal counsel, the developer has legal counsel. And so I think it's only fair. And we're in the process of trying to secure somebody. So that would be adding another piece to getting closer to a cross-access agreement. And then as far as the application, it's outside the application, the turning radius from 4th Street onto the driveway is the turning deficit that's not specifically on the application, that's left out. There's not enough, 20 feet isn't enough to make a 90-degree turn. Hello?
Council, any
Sorry.
additional questions? Okay. Thank you, Marjorie. Is there anybody else that'd like to provide testimony? Come on up.
Mayor, Todd Hanson, 1247 Northwest 4th Street. I just have a silly question. What if we're not, want to have a cross-access agreement? Is this project still good to go with the room that is there? Or am I still able to fight for a fence or a berm between the two properties legally in the common driveway codes to this project? One other thing is my concrete is not my property line. There's about 16 to 20 inches into the gravel area right there on the corner. That visually looks like there's room, but technically there's probably maybe 16, maybe 17 feet. I mean, we just need to paint that pin that's there. So those are my questions. We could do without the trash. Are we able to still get fire and emergency vehicles in there? I think my thought from the last meeting that our driveway is compliant to fire and emergency vehicles without having cross-access agreement. So that's another thing. We've been approached by Brecken on maybe having this cross-access agreement, but at the end of the day, we don't have to do it. So I'm just asking can it be done if it's with the asphalt concrete not touching? Those are my questions. And again, I'm done.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question.
Yeah. I'll see if staff or legal would like to answer that question first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The staff has deemed the application as in compliance with city standards and ordinances as is. An access easement is not required with the adjacent properties to the south. The benefit of that is solely for the property owners to the south for emergency and trash service access.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would agree with Sonia and add, I mean, the value of the cross access is for both the future property owners of the adjacent properties to the north, the application in front of you, as well as the future property owners to the south, right? There'll be no question about crossing whose side of the road is it on, cars that cross, cars that park, cars that turn around. There's no issue of that. Is that required? No, it is not required. They can approve this project without a cross-access easement. The concern that the council is trying to avoid with the neighbors is a future concern or a problem between these properties. That's the value that we're trying to get to. But if that doesn't happen, that's fine. As Sonia said, this is compliant with code. This can be approved without it. It's just, I think the council is trying to make a good faith effort to avoid any future issues, both for your future property development, as well as your neighbors, as well as the future of the people that are going to be living to the north of you, that there isn't a dispute over whose side of the road is this on, or who parked where, or who crossed what. That's really the value here, but is it required? No.
Mr. Mayor, I got another question. So how does traffic flow go through this if I'm ingress and egressing on my concrete drive, which I do every day? The neighbors come in onto their side. So now we got 6 more neighbors or 3 more houses there that come out on the right side, or they come right down the middle. How do you control that without any kind of barrier or fencing? And then again, I'm just throwing out what ifs. I mean, there's that. I mean, to think about too. I mean, I'm driving in and out on the right side every day. My neighbors drive in and out on the left side every day. The trash truck drives up there on a Wednesday, backs in and drives out straight. That's how the trash gets done. Really that's really the only thing we lose is losing the trash. So again, I'm I'm just throwing another monkey in the box. So
Well,
I appreciate it. Food for thought.
and to me, I think you answered your own question. You want to remain being used the way it's currently being used. That's what I heard you just say. You want this.
And I don't have a problem with that. You guys have already, from the get-go, from John, saying the city has already approved a 20-foot driveway through here. You're gonna lose your trash, you're gonna lose your sewer or your emergency vehicle. What if we can make an agreement with cross access agreement? Sonia, John, anyway, you guys have all tried to do this, but again, I don't know why I know why we don't want this. One or two driveways quilted together here. And there's nobody gonna pay for my end of the driveway if we don't get an easement from Doug or from the applicant. So it's kind of like, but we do know there's issues. The two power poles, it's gonna be two subpar driveways connected together to make a 30-foot driveway, which allows wider vehicles to get in and out between the power poles. Again, I'm just, I'm tired of, I want it resolved. And whether it gets resolved in a cross easement or just okay it. And we'll deal with the consequences of the lawyers or whatever that it takes to keep those people off my property. And Doug or J.O. And his contractors. I see that being a real big problem here, is that the only place those contractors are gonna park is on my driveway. Or physically in my driveway down the lane. So there are a lot of things that, other than 3 houses crammed in there that, anyway, I've got to walk away, but it needs to be thought out properly.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
just maybe to, an observation being, the gravel driveway right now is not your property. So you're using it, it's not your property. And the ingress, egress, like those are all, the great thoughts, right? Are you gonna only use your concrete? And if you're halfway down and someone's coming out, are you gonna back out? Like, these are all kind of silly hypotheticals, but yet we're in a situation where, is that where we're gonna find ourselves, where we're getting trespassing calls because someone drove on another driveway? That's what we're trying to avoid, a circumstance like that. And in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, if there's new people living there, whatever the situation is, these are really odd circumstances that we agree with you. We'd love for there to be a resolution where you're happy and the properties being developed are also happy, because it is their property. They have a right to develop it. As long as they're following city code and all the ordinances that we've laid out, they have the right to develop it. And that's what we're being asked to look at. So again, yes, these are all hypotheticals that seem strange and silly, but they seem very real if they're not resolved, which is what we're trying to avoid.
And I think when we're here to talk about this application, and I don't think I shared the story, but I'm gonna share a story. It's 8 o'clock. It's story time. I grew up in the country. My grandparents built a house right next to my parents' home that I grew up in. We were actually connected, to Sears manufactured homes with a 30-foot, it was a basketball court in between our homes. We were actually connected by a cement slab. Everything went great up until some point in time in my life I won't go into. And next thing I knew, there was a fence separating our properties and separating our shared driveway. That fence actually just recently came down after 20 years of neighbors not being able to get along, with sheriffs being called because someone was, it was the neighbors would generally respect the situation and not come through the property until that fence would come up. But then someone would come over who didn't know the rules and would drive and go up through our property, and a member of my family didn't like that. Or when we would get a 4-foot snowstorm and we had the long runway out up our road compared to them that had no runway, and they had to try to back up through heavy snow onto a county highway. These issues matter. And sometimes, the resources and whatnot. What I'm hearing is people want this to be functioning the same way it's functioning today. People can drive in, people can drive out. What this is about. And I'm just gonna say from personal experience, the last thing you want to see is a fence down the middle of this road. That's what's gonna happen if these things can't be simply addressed to understand. You want this to function. Whether you want to function as a 30-foot space, a 20-foot space, all those are great conversations. I would argue make it as small as you can, because no one that's in this room is going to be the one that's going to pay for the maintenance of this once it's done. It's going to be the next property owners, or 30 years from now, where someone's going to be the one that's going to have to maintain it. Make it as little as you need, because the more you put in, more costs. Working together is the best way to keep that cost low. From my perspective. So there's my little story time. I hope we can get this resolved, because I don't want to see what happened to these neighbors, to what happened to me and my neighbors at the house I grew up in through my life. So, sorry. Is there anybody else who'd like to provide testimony on this item? Would the applicant like to come up for any final requests or comments?
Sonia, could I go to the presentation, please? Mr. Mayor, members of the council, here's the graphic that shows the dimensions of the drive and the proposed drive and the access hammerhead turnaround for reference. And I'm not sure where to go with this. So we've been through it so many times, but I don't know that this is ever going to get resolved. I would like to get it approved, and I intend to follow through with the cross-access agreement draft, see if we can get some resolution on that. But I would stand for any other questions and leave it up to council if he would prefer to have it continued one more time. Yeah.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if
Councilman Taylor.
John, when did sounds like the neighbors didn't reach out, didn't have your number. When did you reach out to them?
I did not reach out to them right away. Councilman Taylor, yeah, it was December there, busy time of the year. I really don't, I can there were other commitments that I had to address. And then, of course, the holiday there where a lot of staff was out and just didn't quite get around to it. So it was after New Year's that I followed up with them and kind of got the ball rolling. I did it intentionally wanted to give them a little bit of time right after last hearing. Give them a chance to discuss it among themselves, if they wanted to get an attorney and that sort of thing. Obviously, it was a very heated discussion, and so I thought it might be wise to give it a little space and then come back and see if they'd be willing to talk about the cross access. It seems like there's some interest in that. And then I did get this sketch, one of these in a photo on a text, and I know that the developer is not particularly interested in rebuilding their driveway.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
I know you won't, I know this has been a long process with the HOA from the other side. For a few houses, I know this is a lot of work. Given that I kind of turned it off for a little bit during the holidays too, as a lot of people do, to kind of be with family, to stop worrying about things. So I understand that. I would ask you 2 weeks. Would you be willing to, for 2 weeks, for one last shot at getting this in place? And I'll tell you, I think you've done everything you need that this application can be improved. I'm going to be advocating that this project be approved with or without a cross-access agreement, because I think that you've done it. But I don't want to do that because I want the neighbors and you guys to have a good relationship. I want everyone to get something. Would you be willing to do 2 more weeks and work out the cross-access agreement? I'll also say, I don't think you have any expectation for me to pay for the driveway unless they're willing to pay for it too. That feels like a different discussion. To me, it's cross-access. That's the big issue. Are you willing to do 2 more weeks, or do you want us to vote on it tonight?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Taylor, yes, I'll go for 2 more weeks. Try to get the cross-access agreement solidified.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Taylor.
That's the end of the line for me in terms of taking action. We will take out, I appreciate that. I also know that I think we're doing a favor to the neighbors because these are foreign concepts. Like, this isn't their first language in terms of how this works. So I think we can give them some grace to work through this. If they're getting attorneys, there's a financial cost that they have to kind of work through. I don't just go hire attorneys for fun. They're expensive. So I think that's fair to give them some time to, like, hey, how do they want to engage in this? But I think the issue needs to be resolved. We have to make a decision. So I think that's a fair number. It's not asking too much from you. It's not another month. It gives the neighbors still some time. I think where we are, given many, lots of discussion, if we can't reach a consensus in 2 weeks, I don't think you are ever going to. So I would strongly, advocate, and I hope that the neighbors, we really want to be respectful to your livelihoods and your lives, and we don't want it to be disruptive. And the mayor made a good point. What we want is for it to fill and operate the same way as it has for years for you, with the ability to come in and out. You will have some new neighbors, assuming if it is approved, and this is just me speaking. I'm not going to speak for the rest of my colleagues, but I think that's in my opinion, a fair way to go. And so I would be making a motion if the rest of council is okay to say we're going to continue this for 2 more weeks.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
I agree. I think it's worth it to take 2 more weeks to give it one more shot. I guess my advice to the neighbors, like, I heard a lot of points come up from our last hearing that I think staff has addressed in terms of, the application meets our code. And I think that the right things to focus on are the cross access. I think some of these other requests like berms and stuff, you could certainly request whatever you want as part of a negotiation, but I would just urge you to kind of focus on the one critical piece, which is a cross access. The more complicated it becomes, I think the greater the chances of it falling apart. And I couldn't agree more with the mayor. I just think, like, don't set up a situation for the next 20 years. It's going to be a nightmare. So I hope you all can work together. And for the applicant, I mean, and you yourself admitted, you know, with the holidays and everything, you were delayed. And I appreciate you being honest about that. And I think it sounds like you're committed to engaging earnestly with the neighbors. That's my request of you as well. I want to make sure that you guys start talking soon, like tomorrow, because you only have 2 weeks. Thanks.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
I move that we continue item number 14, application H 2025-0030 for 2 weeks. I want to get the date for January 27th, 2026.
I have a motion, a second, to approve this item to January 27th. Is there any discussion? If not, in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the item is continued. Thank you. See you back then. Up next is item 15, public hearing for Vanguard Village East, SHP 2025-0008. Why are you opening both of these at the same time?
Probably separately.
Okay. Then we'll open this public hearing with staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The next application before you tonight is a request for a short plat. This site consists of 9.26 acres of land. It's zoned CG and is located at the southeast corner of West Grand Mogul Drive and South Umbria Hills Way. This is a re-subdivision of Lot 1, Block 2, Vanguard Village Subdivision Number 1. The short plat is consisting of 4 building lots on 9.26 acres of land in the CG district. No new access is proposed. Access was previously approved via South Umbria Hills Way and West Navigator Drive, both collector streets. An internal cross-access easement is required between the proposed lots and the property to the east. Street buffer landscaping was reviewed and approved with the previous subdivision, which was Vanguard Village Subdivision Number 1. No changes are proposed. Written testimony has been received from Mark Hawk, Alquist, the applicant, in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. The applicant is here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, esteemed council. My name is Justin Ferdine. I'm general counsel for Alquist here representing the applicant. My address is 1144 South Silverstone Way, Suite 500 in Meridian. I won't belabor this and take any more of your time than is necessary. Certainly appreciate staff's efforts to summarize this project. We do feel it is fairly straightforward. Sonia, are you able to pull up the materials? We have just a few slides.
I'm sorry, I pulled it up and I did not share it. That would help. Just a moment.
No worries.
Mm. Sorry, I'm having a bit of technical difficulties here.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, we don't need to belabor this, but just briefly to run through the timeline, as you may recall, the original plat for Vanguard Village subdivision number 1 was approved in 2024. It was then signed and recorded last year. Shortly thereafter, then this application was filed, as well as the next that we'll get to in just a bit. Here, for references, again, another view of the area. You can see Vanguard Village subdivision there to the south. And currently for the application we're discussing now is highlighted in red there for the Vanguard Village East short plat. Here again is a closer look at what we're looking at, turning that one lot into 4. Again, we appreciate all of staff's work on this. We concur with their analysis as well as the recommendations. We have no objections to any of the conditions, and therefore we would respectfully request approval at this time. That said, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, you want to sign up to provide testimony on this item?
Mr. Mayor, no.
Is there anybody present who would like to provide testimony on this item? See no one coming forward. The applicant waive their final comments. Applicant waives final comments. Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
question for Sonia. Sonia, are there additional conditions that we need to add to this approval tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Overton, there are not.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
No other comments. I'd move to close the public hearing.
Have a motion second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Okay. Considering all staff applicant public testimony, I move to approve file number SHP 2025-0008 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 13, 2026.
Have a motion second to approve item 15, SHP 2025-0008. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taylor?
Aye.
Strader?
Aye.
Whitlock?
Aye.
Little Roberts? Overton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. Item is agreed to. Next item up is item 16, public hearing for Vanguard Village West, SHP 2025-0009. Open this public hearing with staff comments.
All righty here. Sorry, flipping back and forth between all of these. The next application before you is a request for a short plat as well. This site consists of 21.78 acres of land. It's on CG and is located on the south side of West Grand Mogul Drive, midway between South 10 Mile Road and South Black Cat Road. This is a re-subdivision of Lot 3, Block 1, Vanguard Village Subdivision Number 1. The short plat consists of 4 buildable lots, again on 21.78 acres of land in the CG zoning district. No new access is proposed. Access was previously approved via South La Vista Lane and West Navigator Lane, both private streets. An internal cross-access easement is required between the proposed lots and to Lot 4, Block 1, Vanguard Village Subdivision Number 1. Street buffer landscaping was reviewed and approved with the previous subdivision, Vanguard Village Subdivision Number 1. No changes are proposed. Written testimony has been received from Mark Hawk from Alquist in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with conditions, with no added conditions from council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward? Hello again.
Hello again. Again, Justin Ferdine with Alquist, 1144 South Silverstone Way, Suite 500 in Meridian. This will sound very familiar to the prior public hearing, but for the sake of the record, we'll briefly run through this. Again, the original plat was approved in 2024, signed and recorded last year. This application followed shortly thereafter. This one we've creatively named Vanguard Village West, short plat. And here, again, just by way of orientation, you see the vicinity we're talking about. the area in the center of Vanguard Village there. Once again, just moving from one lot to four. And here's a closer view of what we're proposing. And again, as in the prior instance, we are in full support of both staff's analysis as well as the recommendation, including the requested conditions, and therefore would respectfully request your approval as presented by staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
just curious, you don't have to answer, but do
Sure.
you have a sneak preview as to who we could look forward to seeing here in this development? A sense of what type of tenant or user would be here?
Yeah, I think we're giving away a little bit here. If you look closely, the arrow at the bottom indicates we do have a large furniture user slotted to come in the south. Otherwise, no users identified yet for the northern portion of the property, but the southern portion is under contract with that furniture user.
Thanks.
You bet.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, you want to sign up on this item?
Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the room or online? If you're online, use the raise your hand feature. Seeing no one coming forward, no one raised their hand. Does the applicant waive final comments? Applicant waives final comments. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
I move that we close a public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
it's pretty straightforward, short plat. It's really the execution of a plan we've already approved. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number SHP 2025-009 as presented in the staff report for today's hearing date.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 16, SHP 2025-0009. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taylor.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
Little Roberts. Overton.
All ayes, motion carries. Item is agreed to. Have a good evening. Okay, item 17 is discussion of city council liaison assignments. Turn this over to Council President Overton.
Mayor, members of council, I've had the opportunity to speak with everyone on the council for upcoming 2026 council liaison assignments. And for the record, I'd like to list off where those will be. Councilmember Liz Strader will take over Parks and Recreation for 2026. Councilmember Brian Whitlock will assume Liaison for Public Works. Councilmember Doug Taylor will take on Meridian Fire Department. Councilmember Luke Cavanagh, who's not here tonight, will take on Community Development Department. And Council Vice President Ann Little Roberts will retain her position at the Police Department for this upcoming year. I decided to go with past practice that previous council president had, Luke Cavanagh, and I'll assume the smaller departments of the city clerk's office, human resources department, IT, legal, mayor's office, and finance department. And with that, that wraps up the liaison assignments for 2026.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And that will come back next week. Is that correct, Scenery? So you'll all see that back next week. Any comments, questions for the council president? All right, we'll see none. Let's move on to item 18.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
we go into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206, subsection 1B.
Second.
Have a motion second to go into executive session. Ms. Scenery, wasn't there supposed to be another item?
I thought we added on F.
I do recall that was supposed to be added. I don't know why it didn't take, but yeah, you did.
Okay,
In-
F. We could add F as well. So
Councilman Overton.
Add my motion to include subsection F.
Second.
Have a motion second to go into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061 B and F. Is there discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taylor,
Aye.
Streeter,
Aye.
Whitlock,
Aye.
Little Roberts,
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries, and we'll go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
move that we come out of executive session.
A motion second, come out of executive session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Yes, have it. We are out of executive session. Council, anything under future meeting topics or a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Yes, have it. We are adjourned.